are listening to Spaceboy Universe on the SBU network.
Explore the universe with Spaceboy and Sir Lana.
Minutes, 21 seconds. 5-second tone followed by a 1-second pause.
You are listening to Spaceboy Universe.
Okay, gang, let's go.
From the space city called Houston, Texas, welcome to Spaceboy Universe, featuring Spaceboy and the lovely Sir Lana. So strap in and prepare for launch sequence.
Greetings and salutations, I'm Spaceboy, and across from me is the lovely Sir Lana, and we make up the dynamic duo that is Spaceboy Universe. It is April 21st, 2017, and tonight we're going to be talking to Patrick-sporer, the Precog. Boy, it's going to be fun tonight. As always, you can call the universe, and our new number is 833-202-SBUN. And you can also follow us on Twitter. That's right. That's at the SBU Universe. Follow Sir Lana at Sir Lana. Follow me at Spaceboy Music. And, of course, follow the network that brings you all this fine programming, and that is at the SBU Network. Hey, you want to hang out with them Space Cadets? You can do so by going to spaceboyuniverse.com, click on the dancing chat bubble, and that'll get you in with all the cool kids. Speaking of Space Cadets, remember to hashtag your tweets tonight with hashtag Space Cadets and hashtag SB Universe. You know, Sir Lana, in addition to Twitter, you can find the universe on Facebook, Tumblr, SoundCloud, iTunes, YouTube, iHeartMedia. Just look for Spaceboy Universe. Speaking of YouTube, you know you can find more than the SBU archive of shows. That's right. There is video content from Spaceboy Music, video interviews from all the things that we do, 2-Bit Gamers, and so much more. So go to YouTube. Become a subscriber today. It's your duty as a Space Cadet to do so. Can't catch a show live? No problemo. Take SBU on the go with you via Spreaker, SoundCloud, iTunes, and iHeartMedia. Man, we love our iHeartMedia. So on that magical note, let me bring into the conversation the lovely Sir Lana. How are you, Sir Lana?
Pretty good. We had another interesting day, another planning meeting with the coordinator of Houston Maker Faire, which means we'll be getting involved in Houston Maker Faire in October. We'll be there, and I'm helping to volunteer, do some social media and get the word out and some coverage for them. And part of that planning meeting covers the glorious Comic Palooza 2018, and let me tell you, this is going to be a heck of a time with Comic Palooza, which is May 25th through 27th, 2018. Tom Holland is going to be there, Mr. Spider-Man himself, Kristen Ritter and Charlie Cox from the Defenders, and also Jessica Jones and Daredevil. I mean, that's some exciting stuff. Michael Chiklis is going to be there. He was in the Fantastic Four, and so that was pretty exciting. 3, not 1, not 2, but 3 of Star Trek: The Next Generation people. Well, no, 2. It's going to be LeVar Burton, Brent Spiner, and Jerry Ryan. I forget, Jerry Ryan's on Voyager.
Star Trek Voyager, yes.
And so we're going to get some Trek people there, which is great. And then you're going to have both of the guys that played in Chips. A lot of you might be too young to know what Chips was. It was a TV show. Of course, one of my favorites, Patrick Warburton, who's done a lot of voice work. He's an actor, but he's done a lot of animated voice work.
On mainstream TV, you can find him on Fox's Family Guy. But, of course, we've grown to love him with Venture Brothers as Brock Samson.
Of course, he was in a wonderful Disney animated film, The
yeah.
Emperor's New Groove, where he played Krunk.
That was funny. I love that.
He's
movie.
pretty much playing the same character every time he's animated. So, but we can't wait for Comic Palooza. It is going to be awesome, and of course, they're going to have their usual great lineup. Edward James Olmos is going to be there. Orlando Jones, and they're going to have all the great writers and comic book illustrators as usual. And of course, there's a lot more guests coming that I'm not personally familiar with, but you could always go to comicpalooza.com and check out right there on the front page a list of everybody that's going to be there, as well as if anybody canceled. But of course, our biggest concern is Makerspace, which is going to be part of Comic Palooza, as it was last year, as it is going to be this year, because we will be there as part of Comic Palooza in Makerspace. And do we talk about the other thing?
No, what other thing do we... I mean, you already said...
That we've been invited to participate in. Of course, we filled out a form to do it, but...
Okay, no, I don't
podcasting.
know. Well, the thing is that... Let me stop you right there, Solana, real quick. Yes, Comic Palooza, very important. It's coming up. Go to comicpalooza.com to check it out and get tickets. And if you're going to be in Houston area, pretty much the last weekend leading up to Memorial Day, go ahead and do that. That's comicpalooza.com. Go ahead and do that. Of course, we're filling in for dual kind of situation. We're a part of the official podcast of the Comic Palooza part, but we're also the official podcast for Maker Faire. So we're filling in for two duties, and it's going to be exciting for everyone. So please go there. Please check out the website if you're in Houston. Come see us at the Comic Palooza. It's going to be a lot of fun.
What I love about the Comic Palooza, it's not just like cosplay. It's not just coming to the exhibits. It's that stuff. But it's panels, it's interaction, it's seeing things you've never seen before, and as well as cool guests and getting to interact with writers and authors and illustrators and things like that.
And as we said before, check out our social media for more information on all that. And so go. Check out comicpalooza.com. Get your tickets if you're going to be in Houston. If not, fly down here. Get your tickets. Come to see us.
It's worth it.
Yeah, it's worth it. We'd love to see you, and we'll go from there. So what else we got on the agenda, Solana?
Well, the agenda. I don't really have an agenda.
So nothing Facebook-wise, nothing interweb-wise, nothing that we'd normally talk about the first 30. I mean, I do have something to talk about, but I wanted to save it till we went to break.
Oh, okay. Nothing really going on in our lives other than, everything is Comic Palooza oriented, getting ready, because we're going to have a bigger, badder booth. And I got older this week and fatter because of cake. And we won't dwell on that. Anyway.
Well, the thing is, I told Solana, she bought a cake for her birthday. It was
a cake.
And the cake was not to the standards of eating a certain cake level. And so it was kind of a sad cake. So I told her there are 2 times to get a cake. That's the cake leading up to your birthday and the cake that you get.
I've never heard of this. And the pre-birthday cake and then the official birthday cake.
Well, the official birthday cake needs to be, butter cream icing?
Frosting, yeah.
Yeah, frosting, which is delicious, especially when you put it in the refrigerator and it chills down to a certain level, and it's kind of a hardness, but it's still delicious. But then you have the other type of birthday cake that is whipped.
Yeah, it said it was called elite icing. I don't know what that means. I guess that's kind of like traditional cake icing or something.
Yeah, it is a traditional type cake.
It was light though. But
yeah, but see, when I think of cake, I don't think of that. I think of the
buttercream.
Buttercream. It's
heavy.
It's a little bit heavier and delicious.
It's
good with ice cream.
When they put it on their cupcakes, which is just the same thing. It's the same stuff. Their cupcakes are heavy. I mean, you could lob this at somebody's head. I mean, let's be a waste of cupcake.
But anyway, bottom line is we got another cake today.
It's a petite cake. It's not a full-size cake. It's just enough for 2 people.
Yeah, so Solana has loved the cake today, and that's all that matters. So she got cake. Yeah, you're going to take a shower in that cake, aren't you?
Yeah.
Hey, I know what you've been jazzed at, and you've seen trailers for it. The new Deadpool movie coming up.
Yeah.
So, what do you think of the latest trailer for Deadpool?
Well, it won't be boring. I don't think.
I think it's action packed, and and then I love the comedy that's going to be involved. I love there's a part in it where he's telling Cable that are you from the dark? You must be from the DC
It's so
universe.
dark. Are you from the DC? You sure not from the DC universe?
That was funny. I love
that. Pump the hate brakes, Thanos.
Yes, a little Thanos joke there. So yeah, it's going to be rocking. I think this early reviews of the movie were kind of for it, but from what I've seen of the trailer, it just looks off the hook. So if they had to go back and do some rewrites and reshoots, I think it's going to fall out pretty good, because that looks like the movie I want to go see. Of course, I want to go see the Avengers, the Infinity War. That's on my list.
Like, if we go see it, cool. If we don't, we can
I
just
know
wait and buy it.
Your number one movie you want to go see is Deadpool.
That's it.
Infinity War, you're kind of I know you don't care for seeing Solo movie. In fact,
I probably won't even go to that.
The only reason I would definitely want to see that movie is you got Lando Calrissian. And you've got Chewbacca in there. But the guy that's playing Solo, I'm not really impressed with him.
Not sold on Solo?
I'm not sold on Solo. I think the movie's going to be okay, and it'll probably do good, but I think they could have done better with a better Solo.
Yeah, because it doesn't look like him. Does it seem like him?
It doesn't have that swagger. It doesn't have that cockiness like him. And we're only watching the trailers for it, so we could be
hitting something.
I just hit the
I'm
desk.
sorry. I thought something was going on outside. So.
No, the way my microphone is hooked to the table, and so if I hit it too hard, and I don't mean to, so please forgive me, or just announce it to our audience. Anyway, so that's movies coming up. I'm thinking there was a movie coming out at the end of May, and I can't remember what it is. It's probably because I know Deadpool is May 18th. I guess it's the Solo movie that's towards the end of the month, leading into summer. But hey, it won't be long before we see how crummy the trilogy ends for Star Wars. After all the mess that happened in the second movie. Yeah, I'm saying it was a mess, so deal with it, people. Anyway, what else we got over there, Solana? Let me pull something out of my bag over here, since I'm chit-chatting with our audience, everybody. Solana read 14 books today, and... they were quite boring. You don't need to know the details. Jurassic Park. That's coming down the pipe.
Yeah, it's just that there's all these cool movies coming out. Cool movies for everyone else, but I'm like, I don't care.
Well, movies aren't your thing.
They're not my thing.
When I was younger, there were some times when I'd go, to the theater on the weekends and see like 3 movies in a weekend. I think the worst weekend I ever had is when I saw 3 movies, and the last movie I saw was 7. And that was quite a bummer to end on. And I came out of the theater. It was raining. It was nasty. And it just depressed the heck out of me. I think the longest movie I ever saw was AI, the Spielberg / Kubrick last drawing of a movie kind of thing. That was kind of like, when I left that theater, everyone was quiet when they were walking out. It was really surreal when I came out of that movie. Hey, speaking of birthdays, we want to wish Iggy Pop a happy birthday. He was in Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Remember him?
Yes.
The Magnificent Ferengi. That's the episode?
Nobody knows that but you and I.
Well,
we're the only 2 people who know that Iggy Pop was an episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
I'm reaching out for the pop culture aspect.
He was a Vorta.
He was also a musician in real life, for those kids that don't know.
He looked better as an alien than he does himself.
Well, some people pull it off, others don't. But, it is what it is. And, we found out the mystery that He-Man's loincloth wasn't his loincloth.
That's a visual. You can't even talk about that.
Well, he did a little shaving, and apparently it wasn't a cover-up. I guess it was a cover-up, but, I digress. But anyway, so, we found out that today, and it was quite amusing. Let's see here. We actually did Space Boy music last night. Yes.
We enjoyed both people that showed up.
Yeah, well, that's not the point. We had some quality time with 2 people.
2 people.
And
one of them's a new space cadet.
Yes, a new space cadet.
A brand new one. So
y'all
getting shown up.
She hasn't been spoiled like everyone else out there. But we did the release of the new album, and it was a smashing good time. And I went through all the music, and played that up. So if you get a chance, check out spaceboymusic.com. It has the player on there as well, and it has the latest episode of that. It's
good to listen to while you're being forced to make digital media.
You know, and of course, also, we want to wish a happy belated birthday to Solaris Blue Raven, who celebrated her birthday yesterday, and so happy birthday to Solaris Blue Raven. So we love you, dear.
Oh, she's an Aries like me.
Well, you know. Let's see what else I got on my agenda here, Solano, since...
I'm sorry, I looked for something to talk about, and I was like, I don't care about any of this.
Mm-hmm. So when do we have a show?
I know that Westworld's coming back. I guess we'll keep watching that.
Actually, that comes out tomorrow, I believe. So we can start ramping up on that. You know, I finished the, what was it that I just saw recently? Lost in Space. I thought it was pretty decently. I know it's not your cup of tea, but anyway, I'm just saying that it was decent. I hope to see a second season, and I guess we'll see how that plays out. You know, Fred Ward is joining Kevin Bacon for an 8-part Tremors TV series.
I can't believe they're both doing that.
I know, but
I mean, they got better things to do, surely.
Surely they could, but hey, those things that fall through the crack is my TV watching abilities.
That's a weird. Was that a movie originally?
Yeah, Tremors.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a weird thing that caught on, kind of like how Sharknado came a thing.
Yeah, because the guy...
I guess so over the top, maybe?
That played Michael Keaton's dad, and I can't think of his name right now, went on to play more...
Oh, yeah, I can't think of his name.
But he played...
Michael Gross?
Yeah, Michael Gross. Played several more...
Why do I know that?
Well, I guess it's just a name that just pops out there. Let's see. You heard about the malfunctioning robots that terrify drinkers in London's pub, right? A London pub. No? Okay.
I told you about. Oh, I remember telling you about that, and I was dying laughing.
I guess what was it? My post of exterminate.
Well, it's over in the UK to promote Westworld. They actually there's some famous guy over there that nobody else knows, but those people, some locals. Celebrity, and they made a robot of him that looks realistic to the Londoners or the people in this pub.
Right.
And they set him up in a pub, put a drink in front of him, and they had he's AI, and they had some stuff programmed into it, but he was supposed to interact with other pub goers, and it was freaking people out. And they
broke a glass,
malfunctioned, but it was all very well coordinated malfunction. It wasn't like it actually lost its little robot brain, but it was freaking people out.
So
and I was reading it, and I was just dying.
So you're saying it purposely malfunctioned?
Yeah, broke some glass in it just to freak people out.
Yeah, okay.
But the article about you read it out loud, it's hysterical. You'll cry.
Yeah, that's not as hysterical as one of the posts I saw where somebody had a Velociraptor replica.
Oh, outside somebody's bedroom?
And they pushed it to their neighbor's bedroom door.
And just left
it there. And that thing, if I had looked out the window on that thing, first off, I'm sure I would have pulled a gun or something and asked questions later. But that was pretty funny.
Do you believe this? I don't know if I believe this. Woman mortified after mistaking friend's wombat photos for birth of new baby.
Oh my goodness. That's pretty messed up.
Pregnant woman posted photos of a marsupial on her Facebook. Its mother and its siblings died. That's why she picked it up. So it's the reason I stopped, checked, and see about 20 deceased wombats on the road near my home. So it was the only living wombat left alive, so she took it in and posted a photo of it. And she put missed off the blank, amazing casual follow-up question. OMG, congratulations, he's beautiful. I miss you so much. I didn't look properly. I thought you had your baby. Sorry, OMG. So when are you due?
It's so messed up.
And it doesn't look anything like a baby. I mean, it if anything, it looks like a fetus that just came out. I mean, it's hairless.
That is so messed
weird
up.
Looking.
I'm telling you, Solana. I mean, that's about as bad as saying, "Hey, when the baby's due?" and the lady's not pregnant and she's just big boned. So, but yeah. So a lot to get over on that one, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm looking at the weird news on mirror.co.uk. It's just good stuff.
Always
a lot of good stuff here.
Always good stuff there. I like posting stuff from there. And hopefully, I was thinking that you might see something you could share with the class.
I don't know if I could share this or not. Cheeky male gorillas caught getting frisky by shocked photographer at the Rotterdam Zoo. And the look on this one gorilla's face. I don't know if they do that for dominance or because they're bored, but the look on his face looks like, uh-oh.
I don't know
if I caught.
You know, it's like, okay, they know the camera's there, or they just continue.
This one looks like he just looks up and just saw it, like, oh, shit.
Okay. Of course, some sad news to report that Austin Power star Vernon Troyer died at 49. He has passed away, so that's pretty sad. He was a very unique individual and off-screen, and saw him in a few. I guess he did some kind of reality show, and anyway, he'll be sorely missed. I think they were, the Austin Powers was trying to. Let me get my thoughts together. What is his name? Austin Powers.
The guy who plays Austin Powers. Mike Myers.
Mike Myers has had this project in development hell to get to.
It should probably stay there.
To number 4, and I don't think after this it's ever going to happen. So, it can only go from there. So, there's a new show on Netflix that I'm anxious to check out. And I shared this with you today,
Is it
Solana.
available yet? Or?
Yeah, it's available. It was available Friday.
Let's watch it tomorrow.
We're definitely going to have to watch this. It looks just totally cool. I think it's Japanese, and it looks almost, the old Flash-based cartoons.
Oh, yeah. I made a few.
It's very well done, and it's like this red panda. She's like a Disney princess, except she's a red panda who hates her job and loves death metal. And what's funny is you start to watch this and you think, oh, she's cute. Oh, it's sad that she's going through all this. And then all of a sudden she goes into this, it looks like a karaoke place where you can go into a room by yourself and sing. And all of a sudden she starts singing death metal. And it looks just really cool looking. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. So that's definitely on my list. Of course, I thought of you, Solana, because, the angst part and, I could see you doing the death metal behind the scenes somewhere.
Really? That's strange insight into my life that I wouldn't...
Solana, I have I thought about something the other day. And there's a scene in where Darth Vader has Han Solo on the Cloud City thing, and he's about to interrogate him. And you got Boba Fett, he's telling him to go take care of something, whatever, and he says, "As you wish." Now, all of a sudden, I had this flash to, the scene where the grandfather's talking to little Freddie Savage about the Princess Bride. I was wondering, did he mean that I love you?
Oh, as you wish means means I love you.
And which leads me into, I love this segue, is guess who's going to be the next 2 stars in the show on Netflix called Stranger Things?
I don't know.
Come on, you know this one, Sir Londa. Don't act like you don't know. Carrie
Elways?
Yes. Oh. And Jake Busey is going to be in it.
Oh, God. Jake Busey is perfect for anything weird.
Yeah, I mean, he's not as crazy as his dad, but it should prove to be interesting. So, yeah, they're going to be in the next Stranger Things show, and so I'm kind of excited about that.
Can I tell you this one?
I don't know. Can you?
Shocked mom finds car covered in baked beans. And here's an angry message explaining why with a photo. A woman was accused of blocking a gate with her car, returned to find it covered in baked beans. Emma, who chose not to disclose her full name, had left her vehicle in the car park at a submarine manufacturer's in Barrow, Cumbria. This is probably UK.
Barrow, Cumbria.
30-year-old mom said her car was not only vandalized, but an irate note left attached. Well, wake up earlier. This is not a parking space. People need regular access to these back gates, and you're stopping them. Clearly signs on both sides of the gates indicating access is needed and not to park near them. Do this again, and we will contact BAE Systems HR department, and we will also go to ME Council. If you want a proper parking space, wake up earlier. So I guess you have to get up early to get a good spot.
Kind of sounds like you going to work.
Yeah, so she should come to terms with a note, but was deeply troubled by the baked beans. Wouldn't mind if someone asked if it was okay to park here, but they said it would be fine. I was by no means blocking any gate. So whoever you are, go tell who you like and tell them how you vandalized my car. Honest, the whole car park is terrible to get around, and some houses back onto it, which is what I'm supposed to have blocked. I think it's a sad world we live in to do that to someone's car. The note, fair enough, if I have annoyed you, fine, but the beans. So I don't know if the beans eat through your paint or something. I mean, so it's like a can of beans someone opened up and dumped. You know, was that like part of someone's dinner?
I don't know if paint. Well, you know, if beans can tear you up. I'm hot in here. I'm taking out my my outer
He's
shirt.
taking off one layer, people.
I'm taking off an outer shirt because, man, it's freaking hot in here. Hey, here's some news that I'm sure is going to make you say, well, duh. There is evidence that a planet in our solar system was destroyed.
Duh, there's probably more than one planet that's been destroyed in our solar system. How do you think all this crap got here?
Well, you know, a lot of it falls into Jupiter, but I like to think that what is it?
That rubbing noise is him taking off a shirt.
I like to think of the evidence of the asteroid belt as evidence of a planet that was once in our solar system. So yeah, this stud is for you. So, you know, and then of course, another strange stain of news that I read this week, and it's kind of like freaky. Well, just a Russian woman was embalmed alive in a deadly hospital mistake.
This I don't know if I believe.
Apparently they put embalming fluid in her instead of an IV into her. And so I think that's pretty messed up. Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen. I had to.
He's taking off a shirt, and I just put on a jacket.
Woo, it's hot in here.
There's definitely something. One of us has got a problem. I don't know which one it is.
It's her. Believe me, it is her. After marriage so long, I can definitely be a witness to testify against that. So, you know.
I got so many things to tell a lawyer. I can't wait.
So, let me change this up, Solana, before we go into break. I want to talk a little bit, the continuation about the passing of Art Bell. As many of y'all know, the great person who has been, I guess, doing her duties over there on Dark Matter Radio Network, Heather Wade, has been very broken up about his passing, obviously. They were very close, and, you know, she's just not herself, if I can say. And what I want to do is ask our space cadets to, you know, send kind messages to her, send your prayers, whatever you can do to let her know that she's not alone, and to continue to do the broadcasting, and because she does have a great voice and a great gift, and we would sorely miss her. And I just wanted to just send that out, and then plus my own personal beings to Heather Wade is that you're not alone. There's many people out there that love you and listen to you, and I would just hate for you to fade away off the airwaves. You know, I just wish you would just reconsider coming back, because, you know, there are people that like you and listen to you, and you do have a great gift, and I just wanted to say that about Heather. And Space Cadets, if you could do the same, if you feel like I do, wish her well, and to get back onto the mic and let her healing process begin too as well. So on that magical note, let's go ahead and take our break and get good old Patrick Sporer on the phone, because it is Patrick Sporer, the Precog, coming on tonight on Spaceboy Universe. Don't touch that dial.
You are listening to Spaceboy Universe on the SBU network.
Explore the universe with Spaceboy and Solana.
This is author Jordan Root. You are listening to the Space Boy Universe.
This is K28, and I'm listening to Space Boy Universe.
Hi, y'all. This is Lori calling from Texas, and I love listening to Space Boy Universe.
Hey, this is Dave Cruz, host of Beyond the Strange, and you're listening to Space Boy Universe.
This is Wendy. I'm listening to Space Boy Universe. Hey, y'all. This is Lorelai DeLille. I listen to Space Boy Universe. Don't you? Tell your mom and them I said hi.
You are listening to Space Boy Universe. Here are your hosts, Space Boy and Sir Ronnie.
All right, we're waiting for Patrick to get tied into the system, and Sir Ronnie is looking at that. And so we're waiting for Patrick to show up, and he is trying to get in. It's this new system we have. It's more reliable than Skype, because you know how much we love Skype. And
it's a system we used before, but we've never done it quite like this.
Yes, the correct way, that is.
The correct way. We should have been doing it all along, but yeah.
So my question while we're waiting for Patrick is, mermaids. Are they real or are they fake? There's many, those roadside attractions that would make mermans and whatever.
Has that, every now and then something will come up out of the blue and trickle up through social media now. That little, it's not to do with mermaids, but it's like a little tiny alien skull or body.
Yeah.
I notice it keeps resurfacing every year or so. And it's supposed to be in this museum somewhere. And I know I've heard Linda Moulton Howe talk about it. And it's like, I don't know, what would you say that size is, babe?
That's about 9 to 10 inches.
Well, yeah, I've noticed that keeps resurfacing every now and then. I've seen it on Facebook. People have been posting about it again.
Right.
And I don't know if it ever been debunked or not, but I'm wondering, why does that keep coming back again and again and again?
Well, Patrick is having a little difficulty. Patrick.
Does he want to call the listener?
I guess, yes, for the sake of time, let's just call the main line because we can still take calls with him on the guest line.
Yes, we can. We'll just go ahead and call the guest line. The listener line, which is 833-202-7286 or SBUN.
Mm-hmm.
So 833-202-7286, Patrick. Because we can have up to 5 people at one time. Or we could have more, but I just think that's not doable.
Right. I came to the conclusion the reason why we don't want to do...
We don't want squatters either.
We don't want more than just a guest and somebody to talk to the guest. Mm-hmm. Because once you get into that group kind of chat situation...
We have people who will squat and not say anything. I'm like, well, why are you wasting your money and stuff?
It's not even that. It's just multiple, users, and it sounds like a garbled mess. So, but before we go any further, I believe we have Patrick on the line. Are you there, Patrick?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Perfect. So let me do your intro, sir. Patrick-Sporer, a.k.a. the Precog, has been a precognitive... Hold on, let me get my...
Can you do it?
Well, you got the... No, I've got the... Do you have the new...
No.
Anyway, he has been a oh, God, I can't believe I'm going to say this.
Where are you reading this from? I'll do it.
He sent the thing. It's in my thing, my mailbox. I just need
to get into your mailbox.
He has been a precognitive dreamer and an intuitive since childhood. This has been triggered by an accident, an encounter with an otherworldly being, or genetic. It's genetic. And I do apologize about this all in advance, Patrick. We are going to have a good time, and it is past retrograde. He has been recording his dreams and studying them for over 35 years. He has discovered how to decode his dreams, which have provided previews of future events. For the last 11 years, he has posted timestamp Precognitive Dreams to his Dream Cognition Blog for anyone to witness before they manifest into high-profile news or Florida Lotto results. He is a decorated U.S. veteran, and thank you for your service, sir, and has been featured on Fox News, ESPN, GMA, featured in national magazines and local news publications. He was involved in the fitness industry as a national-level bodybuilder, owned a bodybuilding gym, promoting events, was a national-level physique judge. In addition, he has a background in hypnosis and worked as a psychic reader for many years. Please give it up for our guest tonight, and that is Patrick-Sporer, and tonight's subject is going to be predeterminism. Hello, Patrick.
Yes, predeterminism, not premeditation.
Yes.
I've been watching some SUV show, and in the subconscious I put premeditated there, but whatever. In a way, it's all premeditated from my personal experience. But I want to say hi, shout out to all your space cadets, and I want to also shout out to your PAUK listeners. And I want to thank both of you guys for having me on again.
Well, we're always excited to talk to you, whether it be on the mic or off the mic. You provided us off the mic with such information that we need to survive in the world we call the universe. and doing that. And we always thank you for the knowledge that you've bestowed on us.
I think we should pool our resources and open a little pub or a bar with Patrick and call it Mercury Retrograde. That way we have somewhere to go drink during retrograde.
That might work. You never know. It's a good name, isn't it?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I actually had an idea for a TV series, that I was working on. But anyway, tonight I want to kind of open with what the last 10 minutes of your show last week I called in. You do recall that?
Oh, I think so. I don't know if Solana
That's
was there.
good to ask. I mean, gosh, there's so much goes on between Saturdays to Saturday.
Yeah. Well, I called in and you had mentioned at 11:33 when you guys came back from your break. You said, "Hey, I just saw this news story pop up that it snowed on the pyramids for the first time in 112 years." Do you recall that?
Oh yeah, I remember that very distinctively.
Yes.
Okay. And
that
then
I remember.
When I called, okay, then it's very, very good that you remembered, and you had quite a few people on your chat that I think will recall that as well. So it's very important because the beauty of this is that a couple of days later, 112 came in on the Florida Lotto pick-3 game. Now, prior to that, if you remember, when I called in last week to chat with you guys, I mentioned that I had posted a repetition phenomena post on my Dream Cognition blog on April 11th. And it was about 112 or 112 repeating. And it had repeated so many times within a short time frame, and I won't go into the whole thing, but I listed, I think 4 or 5 of them, even to the point there was a headline about an Asian gentleman. He's the oldest living man at 112 years of age or something.
Oh, wow.
I mean, come on. What are the odds? What are the odds of that, right?
Right.
Okay. So I made that post, and then when I heard you say it that night, I thought, oh boy, I think those digits are going to come in, because it was the way it happened. I tuned back in just as you came back on the air the minute you said that. And it was so much, and it sounded, this is how these things happen for me. It sounded like the volume on your show went up at that very moment to me. And I know that it's not the same way it happened to everybody else. That's the way it sounded like to me. So you have evidence of this on your show, right? You didn't edit that. That's on your show.
It's on the show, yeah.
Okay, this is beautiful, because when I posted this, I sent you a copy of the post at Solaris Blue Raven, and she responded to it, along with my private list and on my blog. There were so many people that responded to it, and the beauty of it was your name was all over the place. Your website, the show, I told everybody to tune in, listen to your show in the archives, because that's physical evidence of precognition, and it's going to roll into the subject we chat about tonight. Now, in addition to this is where it gets even freaky. So 112 came in. Let me just double check. They came in on the 18th, April 18th. So that was 1 week after the repetition phenomena. Only 4 days after I said it, and you said it on your show. In addition, I had a Julia Roberts dream on the 15th, April 15th. And her birthday is October 28th. And on her last birthday, believe it or not, 112 came in.
What?
Wow.
You see, yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I mapped that all out. It's all on that post, and it flowed beautifully. Now, in addition, I always give more than one reason why the 112 might be repeating. You guys are aware that you've seen those before.
Right.
And I said, in addition to the possibility of 112 or some combo of that coming in on the Florida Lotto pick-3 game, we could get pick-3 or pick-4 numbers that hit on 1/12/2018 or 1/12/2017. On that same game, guys, on that exact same day, the pick-4 midday jackpot hit on January 12th. Come on, guys. What are the odds of that?
Well,
Think about it.
I guess your idea of odds, in the sense of the universe, could it be good odds or just just a perchance kind of situation?
Well, no, I mean, if somebody that wasn't familiar with what I do,
Mm-hmm.
or the lay person, which is a good question, because most people would look at that and say, "Oh, what an interesting coincidence."
Right.
That's how most people would pass something like that off. Yeah, so that's great that you asked that. But for me, I see this, again, as we get previews and messages of future events in a myriad of ways. And I've said more than once on your show and Solaris' Hyperspace show that the burning bush comes in many forms.
Yeah.
And so, but right. And for me, it comes in all these different ways. It comes through dreams, it comes through this repetition phenomena, it comes through self-talk, quick glancing. Actually, I believe it or not, I have a couple of old school cassette recorders, and I've been making cassette tapes about all this stuff. It's easier than writing it all, so I'm making cassette tapes, and maybe I'll transpire it onto something else. But when you see that kind of beauty of how that all works together, it never ceases to fascinate me. And then there's some other things there, but you can go to my blog and you can read about it. You can punch in 112 there and read it. It's really fascinating. Now, in addition, you might remember the show before this one in December. My good buddy Gene V was jesting me about lotto numbers. And he said, "Hey, I read on the chat, he said, hey, can you give me some lotto numbers?" And I said, "Gene, play 111. And sure enough, 111, I sent that to you. I don't know if you recall it. But the 111 came in like a week later on the Florida Lotto Pick 3 game.
I do.
Now, that's not a
yeah.
common number. See, and again, that was on your show. So that's physical evidence that's on your show. That people should go back to the archives and listen to those shows so you see that there's no hoax going on here. These things are being said in advance of them happening. Not just the lotto stuff, but a lot of other things we've discussed on your show and on Solaris' show. And, the thing about it is, you guys, what peak experiences are?
I'm not sure. Go ahead and explain it to us.
Sure.
Okay. For instance, an athlete will talk about a peak experience, but everybody has these. Like, these are certain points in your life. I'll give you a great example, Spaceboy. Your music. Mm-hmm. When you're making your music, you feel high. You feel alive. I know you do. You have to.
Yeah.
Because you're creating. You're feeling the endorphin rush from when you get this feeling to make this music. Now, Sir Lana may get that same experience when she reads a really good book. Right?
That's probably the only time I might get near such a concept. I don't know. I was sitting there singing, I don't have those.
Okay, but everybody has them. I mean, when you guys got married, was that not a peak experience?
I would think so.
Put you on the spot, didn't I?
I look at it as a moment in time, that is unique, that stands out.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Well, then your wedding should have stood out, right?
Oh, yeah.
It did.
We'll never forget.
I'll never forget that.
Okay.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, you'll never forget it. Okay, so let's say, we'll just say for the sake of things, your example of a peak experience is music. We'll just use these as examples for tonight, and we'll say Sir Lana's is reading a really good novel or something that she gets excited about. Because my older sister feels the same way as you do, Sir Lana. She loves to read, and she gets excited about new books. I have one of my best friends, George. He's an avid reader, and when we used to meet, he would talk about these books. He would bring it. He'd have a book right there, and he'd be reading it while he was waiting on me. And to him, those are peak experiences for people when those books come out. They read them. Well, but the problem we have sometimes when we have peak experiences is that not everybody shares that same feeling. Would that be correct?
Yeah, it'd be like, for example, hey, my me eating a bagel with cream cheese is the most highlight out of my day.
It's not going to get any better than that.
And then somebody else's experience is like, oh,
I just climbed Everest.
Does this taste good? It tastes sour. I mean, so I guess it depends on the experiencer, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. So this is a preface about my experience that is sometimes difficult to convey, and even George, he knows, he's read books. He has a library on metaphysical books as well as novels and everything else. Like I said, he's a very avid reader, reads a lot of different stuff. And when he started seeing, when I was sharing these experiences and these dreams and everything, he said, "Well, I've always read about people doing these things, but I've never known anybody to do it, and especially with the consistency that it appears to be happening to me."
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes people can be taken back by saying, "Yeah, sure, you did that," but that's another reason the blog was started, because I needed somewhere. It's so tough to try to tell your experience to somebody, and you can just see on their face. It's like inside, their eyes are rolling. But on the outside, they're staring at you and going, "Oh, yeah, sure, oh, yeah." But on the inside, they're going, "Oh, this guy's nuts. This is crazy. He's not really doing this."
I know this very well, Patrick, because many times I share things with Solana, and it's like, "Oh, that's nice, dear."
Yeah, that's it.
Exactly. But, so, again, when I'm speaking tonight, and I don't want to offend anybody with some of the subjects I'm going to bring up about why I feel life, I lean towards life being predetermined. I'm going to talk about religion a little bit, but I'm not against anybody in their religion. I want to make that clear. I'm going to talk about the Bible and some of the stuff a little bit, but I'm not a religious person. I don't even really consider myself a spiritual person, because today spirituality has become so commercialized. I'm not really sure that a lot of people even understand what the term means anymore. I'm sure there are people out there that do. But what I'm saying is that I don't want to offend anybody tonight with anything I talk about, so it's just a preface that this is my experience. These are the things I have stumbled across and used examples. So, again, we're going to talk about predetermination, predestination, premeditation, or fate, or destiny. Because you hear, and Space Boy, you and I'm sure Solana and a lot of your space cadets out there are into these epic movie series like Star Wars, Star Trek. Of course, I lean more towards Star Wars because of George Lucas was an advocate of Joseph Campbell. And I don't know if you're aware of who Joseph Campbell is.
Oh, yes, I am.
He
literally
he's a modern-day philosopher. Basically.
Wrote the book on the mythos of the hero, and basically George Lucas just went through the formula of the hero's journey and made that into the plot of Star Wars.
Exactly. So, and we have a lot of these things going around, that people, they're having, it just seems like a lot of people in the world today are having, for lack of a better word, paranormal experiences. But, of course, when you have the consistency like I do every day, you really start thinking, man, how come more people don't maybe understand what I'm experiencing, but yet my numbers grow every day on that blog. So I think there's a lot of people out there that are having these experiences or want to learn to have them. And so that's why I share this. It's absolutely free. It's the Dream Cognition Experiment. I call it that because it's an ongoing experiment. Hopefully I'll live long enough to make greater discoveries. And, and I'm having fun with it, of course, in my retirement from what I used to do. Very different than what I used to do. Very different. But let's think about this for a second. And I'll pose this question to you. We don't have a break yet, do we?
We're coming up on one, but you still got a little time here.
Okay, so you've heard this saying, there's a time for every purpose under heaven, right?
Mm-hmm.
Turn.
Right, it was by the birds, but it's actually, they took it out of the Bible, I think, out of Ecclesiastes, I think somewhere, if I'm correct. Okay, so that is a form of prophecy, wouldn't you say? Which comes from the Christian Bible.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay, so when Christians feel that, although they don't say this is where the strangeness comes in about Christianity and people who read the Bible and any religious text for that matter. I don't have a problem with anybody's mode of worship. I'm glad that there are these things, because if we didn't have some form of religion in our world, I think we'd have total anarchy. That's my own opinion.
Well, I actually agree with that. I think that's a good point there. So go. I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to interject there.
Yeah, I really think without people having some faith in something, we would end up like Childhood's End. I think, is that correct, Sir Lana? Is that the name of the
could be
novel?
Childhood's End
by Arthur C. Or was it Childhood's End by Arthur C. Clarke?
Yes.
And they made it into
yes.
Yeah, I remember Sir Lana talking about that. That was a really good series. My friend didn't think it was that good, but I liked it. But I wasn't even aware of that book until I saw that. And then there's this saying that God has a plan for every man. Now, you've heard that, right?
Mm-hmm.
At some point in your existence. Now, again, that sounds like destiny. That doesn't sound like you have a choice at all about what you can do in this life. And the more I've listened to people who read or quote the Bible, it sounds more and more to me like we don't have a choice. Our lives have been mapped out, and the Christian Bible dictates that, and I'm sure other religious texts do as well. And in my experience, Christians would probably like what I have to say, because of the fact I see life as, I'm not going to say I've always seen it that way, but I've kind of come full circle, and you would have to know more about my history, and we don't have a lot of time to go into that, to understand where I was as a child and where I am now, to why I'm on this path, which I never planned. Guys, I can tell you this, and we'll just give a quick rundown. When I was 8 years old, and what's interesting is I watch, as you guys know, I watch a lot of biographies and interviews on celebrities. Mm-hmm. I love biopics. They're done correctly. I've been watching these old Merv Griffin interviews on Amazon. And it's amazing how many celebrities will use the same age they knew what they were going to do in life. And it's 8 years old. And I remember when I was 8, I told my dad, I said, Dad, I'm going to be a professional baseball player, and then I'm going to make movies. And he laughed. Now, he never mocked me. He didn't say, you can't do that. I just remember him laughing about that. And I did not become a professional baseball player, and I did attempt to get into the movie industry. I mean, maybe it's still down the road, but professional baseball, maybe in a virtual world, but not in this reality. So none of those things happened. But I remember my brother and I always being crazy about Hercules movies with the late Steve Reeves. So in some strange way, I remember identifying with the way Steve Reeves was built, not knowing later on in later years I would end up getting into the sport of bodybuilding, of all things. Now, there was a synchronicity that went on with that to get me to that point, but I don't want to go into all that. I'm just saying I didn't plan on being a bodybuilder. I didn't plan on owning a gym. I didn't plan on promoting bodybuilding shows. All these things that dropped in my lap, I did not plan those things. I'd never said once as a child, I never planned on going in the United States Army, but there was a synchronicity, and if Gene's listening in, he'll probably like this story. But when I was a kid in Key West, Florida, we lived on the heliport. That's where all the officers and the officers' families live. And down in Key West, it's not just the Navy. You have Air Force, you have Army. And in the Army, there's an elite unit called Hawk. And the interesting thing, I was friends with the commanding officer's son, who was in charge of the Hawk Battery down there. Now, this was in late 60s. Guys, when I joined the Army, through a series of events, I end up working indirectly with a Hawk unit. Now, what are the odds of that? Again. And I had instant recall back to that day, and I said, wow, was that foreshadowing when I would be in the Army of all things, which I never planned to do. I never planned on going in the service at all. My dad was a career military officer. Flew 72 bombing missions during World War II, flew in the Korean conflict, and indirectly in Vietnam when we lived in the Philippines. These things were never anything that I planned. So this is another thing, is if everybody goes back over their life in contemplation, meditation, whatever you want to call it, I think you'll see where you were destined for certain things in your life. And some of them may be bleak. I'm not going to say I've had a charmed life. I don't say that. But I've had these, what we talked about at the beginning of the show, these peak experiences. And it seemed like those peak experiences were indirectly destined in some way.
Well,
Does that make sense?
That definitely makes sense. So let's hold it there because I really want to come back and hit you with a question or some statements. And so we're with patrick-sporer, the Precog, as he likes to be called. And you're listening to Spaceboy Universe, so don't go anywhere.
You are listening to Spaceboy Universe on the SBU network.
Explore the universe with Spaceboy and Sir Lana.
Hey, Solana!
What?
If Spaceboy Universe was cheese, would you eat it? Come on now, it's a simple question.
Maybe?
SpaceboyUniverse.com.
You are listening to Spaceboy Universe. Here are your hosts, Spaceboy and Sir Ron.
All right, I got me a tasty beverage during the break and wet my whistle, so hopefully I don't do any stuttering tonight. But I can't guarantee that I won't call Gene Wilder Gene Hackman. So, it might happen. But, I love you all, Space Cadets. Tonight, we have Patrick-Sporer, and we've been talking with him. And Patrick, I guess what gets me the frustrating part is when we're talking about, predestination, is that I don't particularly like that. I want
no matter what you do, it's all
if I choose to go left, it was determined that you should go left. It's almost like the Matrix, has you, and you are I guess a part of a bigger program that you have been programmed to do this, and that's your job function to do this. And so how does that work in this big determination thing? Am I a rogue program, if you will, or no matter how I look at it, rogue maybe I'm just predestined to be, what I am, but that is a part of the programming.
Well, again, remember at the beginning of the show, I said this is how I view the world now. This is because of I've gone on this odyssey and come full circle, and all these experiences, deaths that I've had around me, recent suicides I've had around me, just things like this. I read the news more than most people because of what I do. Because after I make a post, I have to check the news sources every day to see if I'm connecting.
Right.
And I have to check the lotto every day to see if I'm connecting.
Right. You have to validate yourself.
Yeah, I have to validate these things. I don't just leave them open-ended. I come back with the results, and I think that's another reason a lot of people like it, because they're seeing how quickly these things turn around. And if, for instance, I made a post about the actor Richard Gere. You guys know who he is, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Not a fan.
Okay. Yeah. Well, what I'm saying
regardless
is that,
of that.
A couple of days after that dream of Richard Gere, it was suddenly announced that he's going to get married for the third time. Now, for most people would go, okay. But to the world, that was a huge news story. It was everywhere. So, as I told Swears, I try to stay away from any kind of post or prediction that I feel might be mundane or general. There's a lot of stuff I don't even put. I have a stacks of dreams over here that I didn't post, and I've seen some of them happen already because I was concerned that somebody will say, well, it's too general, or it's this. But as Spaceboy pointed out, with most of my stuff, they happen so quick that it's difficult to say, well, wait a minute, if it had took 10 years, he would be the first one to say, well, I don't buy into that, and neither do I. Mm-hmm. This is why I don't buy into Nostradamus and Edgar Casey and these predictions they made so many years ago that people are still holding out. How do we know those things weren't like mine? How do they know Nostradamus and say, like myself, he went, oh, okay, I got that. And Edgar Casey may have done the same thing. These are things that people keep alive because it generates a lot of money, and people get into watching that and all that other stuff. And as a kid, I was interested in those things until I started realizing that those don't even make any sense to me. Those quatrains, I don't know how anybody can even decipher what he was talking about. And then after the fact,
I was going to say, Patrick, and then you're dealing with, it leaves it very ambiguous to what the interpretation is. I mean, it seems over time that they can, eventually you can hit a square peg into a circle, eventually over time, or the other phrase I like to use is how do you, deal with a mountain? You can just one stone at a time, you can turn a mountain into a molehill.
Clock is right twice a day.
Exactly.
Well, that's true. But the thing, and that's great. That's great.
He's so diplomatic.
But the thing about that is that if you have an event happen and you work backwards from it, somebody could say, oh, this is what Nostradamus meant, but you don't really know because it was 600, 700 years ago. How could you possibly even fathom that? You're really speculating when it comes to that. Right. Another thing I wanted to stay away from, and as you know, another thing, as I explained to Slayers too, I do not look at other sites where people make predictions.
Mm-hmm.
I do not go to other dream blogs. I do not visit because I don't want my subconscious polluted.
Keep yourself
because
pure.
we know how the hive mind. Yeah, well, try to keep it pure. But the hive mind has a tendency to get, it's like this Mandela effect that people talk about. Somebody starts something and, and it's like Twitter rage. Somebody can put something on Twitter and suddenly it's like a lit match on a fuse and it's everywhere so quick. And it could be totally false and bogus information, as we've come to find out.
Yes.
But back to the Richard Gere dream. So that took only 3 days to manifest into huge news after I made the post. Then 2 days later, Richard Gere, his birth information connected with a lotto jackpot here in Florida. So as you know, I clearly state on my blog on those posts that it could be high-profile news, and then I give examples of what that could be. And in his case, marriage was right there. And then I also say, but with celebrities, it could be both things, which it could be news, major news, not general news, and Florida Lotto results. And all that happened within 5 days of that dream. Now, again, you have to ask yourself, is that a coincidence? Don't think so. Same thing with the Nicolas Cage dream. And then suddenly we had the huge news story yesterday about the jet skier assassins that were shooting people along the beach from their jet skis. Mm-hmm. And I put that very clearly in the Nick Cage dream that we're going to, he was on a jet ski in that dream. These things come in fragments. I've explained that before.
Real quick, let me throw at you also, Nicolas Cage came up recently, too, in pop culture news, where he wants to be the Joker for the new movie that's going to be set in the past. So that was kind of interesting, and I thought, I'm going to bring that up to Patrick. So his name has come up fairly recently in the news dealing with a movie that he wants to be in.
Well, within a 4-day period after the dream, he had that huge news come out about his $150 million, he blew all that money. Mm-hmm. And that became global news. So these are the things I'm looking for, entertainment news, and then there's these series, like you said. There's these series of other little stories that seem connected to the whole time he's out there. Now, does he have now, the other thing you have to watch in Hollywood, which I learned a long time ago, is you'll start, when a star has a movie coming out, you'll suddenly start seeing all these crazy little stories about him surface because it's trying to get into the consciousness. Oh, that's The Rock. Oh, he's got a new movie coming out. Oh, that's Hugh Jackman. He's got a new movie coming out. The last 3 or 4 movies that Hugh Jackman had coming out, suddenly these stories about his skin cancer on his nose were showing up. And the same thing with The Rock. Suddenly he's suffering from depression, and that came out just before his last movie, Rampage. That's all calculated stuff. I stay away from stuff like that. What I'm talking about are important things like the recent Will Ferrell, he was in a car accident. That's huge news. In the dream, I put that they showed me him having a heart attack or having to have medical attention in the dream. Now, you can't get much closer than him getting in a car wreck and having to be taken to the hospital, mm-hmm. can you?
Yeah.
So, again, all that's posted on the blog in advance, timestamp dated. You can't deny that. The same thing with the bridge accident that happened in Miami. The dream was posted on February 15th this year, and you can go and look at it. I don't want to have to read it all. And I said very clearly that in that dream there were 2 fragments. A friend of mine who was a retired fireman who used to help me out at my gym named Jerry was telling me in the dream, he said, hey, you got it right about the bridge collapse. And, okay, so that's the dream, and we have 2 fragments. So I had the dream of Jerry that I had to make the post on about I could hear something about him or it's connected to the lotto. And then suddenly he told me about the bridge collapse, and I gave my summary. And in that bridge collapse summary, I don't just put, there's going to be a bridge collapse. No, I go in and I make a detailed summary, and one of those was a walking bridge. Very specific on that. Mm-hmm. That happened 1 month after the dream. 1 month, not 10 years, not 5 years. It happened 1 month after the dream. And isn't it interesting that the as I call it, the subconscious dream weaver, conjured up a first responder, a former fireman, as the person telling me about it. It's fascinating.
It is fascinating. I mean, it is fascinating.
Yes, I agree.
Now, in addition, Go ahead, Shalom.
Well, I was thinking, is this all predetermined, though? Does it come up because it's supposed to? Or is it just, like you say, random coincidence?
Well, I'm actually glad you asked that question, because I've given, let's see, a half a dozen examples here about stuff I picked up on via dreams, or the repetition phenomena story that we told at the beginning about 112. See, there's such a consistency here that you have to see from my peak experience, from my point of view, that it looks like these things are in the future and they're established in the future. And that's why I'm saying, and why I've come back to this, and in my contemplation during the day when I'm not posting or I'm not binge watching television, which I thoroughly enjoy, I'm contemplating these things and recording information now on these cassette tapes, because I know I'm onto something, but I'm not really onto anything. But I know I'm onto something that I feel is sort of breakthrough for our world, because I don't see a lot of people taking the effort. I hear a lot of people on some of these other shows talk about dreams, talk about predictions, but you can't really find that stuff. You know, I don't look for it, but I mean, there's no detail. They don't give any dates. They just say, well, I predicted 9/11. You have so many people that say that, but yet they don't detail anything. They don't show anything, and that's why it's important for me to be so detailed about what I'm doing. You can't just say, well, as I was talking about on Hyperspace Show with Solaris, you can't say life is 1, 2, 3 or A, B, C. It's a zigzag. You have to think of linear versus nonlinear thinking.
Mm-hmm.
You can be too logical. You can be too logical, and you can overthink things. I have a friend who overthinks everything in life, and it drives him nuts. And he has this tendency to, he analyzes everything you say to him, and then he'll go, "What do you mean by that?" And you didn't mean anything. You just start talking about a situation, and then suddenly he wants you to, break it all down.
Sounds
Have you ever
familiar.
run into anybody like that?
Sounds very familiar.
Yeah. But here's another thing. Let's look at this again. Let's pretend I'm a intuitive meteorologist. And if you look at meteorology, and you see that weather people, very good men, women, whoever, they can take data to, what do they do with that data? They present a forecast to us just about every day, throughout the day or in the evening news or whatever, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So they're taking fragments of information based on their experience, their training and their experience, and they're coming up with a forecast. What does a forecast mean? They're predicting the weather without a guarantee that the weather is going to be exactly as they say. Let's think about that. So basically, my dreams and the way I'm experiencing life is much like a meteorologist. And here's another thing, Salon, you'll like this. The universe, is it fixed? We always know where the moon's going to be, where the sun's going to be, where the planets are going to be, where the constellations and the stars. The NASA couldn't work without that, right?
Right.
Okay, so that means those are fixed. Why are those fixed? Why are all these positions? Why is it that astronomers and astrologers can predict where all that's going to be? See, that's another thing people need to look at.
Because it's already set. It's set in a motion, controlled by gravitational forces until something breaks that bond. It's just going to do that until something wears itself out.
And is that all random? It just can't be random. It has to be something behind that. Now, I'm not meaning to be blasphemous if I mention the word God, or against anybody who is an atheist. I have no problem with that. I would not, some people think I'm an atheist. I'm not really an atheist because I believe there is a force that exists. I just don't always refer to it as God. But I don't want anybody to, I'm not trying to change anybody's point of view on that. I want everybody to understand that, again, I honor however you worship, as long as your worship doesn't hurt people, as long as your mode of worship does not hurt humanity in any way. And I'll go back to saying, I think without some form of religion or some form of people being able to worship, I think we would fall into a terrible state of anarchy, and we would have major, major problems in the world. But that being said, again, I go back to astrology. So let's think about astrology for a second. That's all based. You had a really good astrologer on your show, what, a month ago?
Yes, Marsha Fox, among other things.
Right, and I suggest I really enjoyed her.
Oh, we did too.
I really enjoyed that show. Yeah, and I hope you have her back. But what I suggested to you guys, and she would put, what I suggested to you guys is that you should have her do your charts leading up to the end of the year, and then have her on at the end of the year to see what occurred, to see what she might have picked up on. Because you guys got some really good aspects outside of these Mercury retrograde based on your signs this year, by the way, and especially you, Spaceboy, because you got Jupiter in your sign. So, and I had it in mind last year. But so we go to astrology, and we have to think those things are fixed. That's why they can make predictions based on those things. And here's the thing: on the day you were born, and I'm not an astrologer, but through the 90s, I went on this odyssey of studying all this stuff. I mean, after my dad died, I was like Houdini was with his mom. I was so heartbroken. I was so depressed, but I hid it from a lot of people. It was a terrible, terrible time. And if you love your parents, trust me, I'm sure you'll feel the same way. My friend last year committed suicide because he was so heartbroken he was an only child. He was also physically challenged. I know him since he was a kid. And I know eventually the loss of his parents and having to bear life without them was just too much of a strain for him. And he killed himself actually on your birthday, Solana, a year ago. And and I knew it was going to happen. I even told some of his friends, I said, you need to really watch over him because I think there's something wrong. The last time I met with him, I sensed it, and he knew I sensed it. And I tried to reach out to him. I tried to call him. I tried to contact him, and he would not return my calls. It was like he didn't want me to talk him out of this because he knew I would have, because I had in the past, which a lot of people do not know. This guy more than once wanted to kill himself. And I knew eventually that time was going to come if a certain downside of a peak experience hits your life. If you love your parents, you're going to miss them. If you love your wife or your husband or your children and you lose them, it is going to be very difficult. It is not an easy thing at all. But I know people who did not have good relationships with their parents. I know people who didn't have good relationships, and they don't miss a lot of their I sometimes envy them because to this day I still miss my parents. But fortunately for me, I dream about them. And it's like reality. And it's like I'm on another timeline with them. And sometimes they're younger. Sometimes they look the way they did before they passed. Mm-hmm. So these things are telling me, these dreams are telling me that there may be an afterlife, but it may not be one afterlife. It may be a very multiple lives that you go into after you die. When your consciousness shifts, I think it happens so quick. Because my dreams are very much like when I hear people talk about near-death experiences. This is how real and vivid. And Solana, you experience this too. You may not do it on the same level I am. I mean, you have vivid dreams, but you may not be picking up, or it may not be important to you to study them the way I do. But I know, because I've heard you talk about them, that you have these extremely vivid, real dreams. Is that correct?
Sometimes, yes. It's weird. I'll go for a while where I don't remember any dream for like weeks or two, and then I'll get this one dream. It's like, holy crap, I just went on a mental roller coaster ride to end all mental roller coaster rides. So it comes in waves now. So
yeah. Well, when you remember, you guys remember when I owned a gym and I was busy all the time, I dreamed a lot. But of course, because of all these other obligations, I couldn't actually break them down and study them the way I would like to, like I can now. Now, I know there's a lot of people who say, well, he has time to do that now. No, true. That's not true. I've been keeping dream journals for a long time, and I've been studying this stuff. And my friend George and I met. He was my wrestling coach in high school, and he and I became friends basically because he heard me talking about some Chinese philosophy while we were in practice, and he said, oh, you read that stuff? And he found it unusual that somebody as young as me was really reading and understanding these things and stuff like that. And we've been lifelong friends ever since. And he's always been sort of like my Miyagi to the Karate Kid in a way. If you get what I'm saying, yeah. So it's interesting that all these people come along in our lives. Now, there again, here's a perfect example. Guys, I never planned on wrestling in high school. It was all about baseball. It's all about baseball. Suddenly, my senior year, they offer a wrestling program, and I said, oh, wow, I've never done that. I think I'll try that. Now, I ended up getting a scholarship in wrestling, but not baseball, after 1 year doing it. Again, and then I met a guy who ended up becoming a big-time martial art movie star. He was on my wrestling team in college, Don the Dragon Wilson. You can look him up. I think I've mentioned this to you before. And I never stayed in touch with him because sort of when I left college, I went my way, joined the Army, etc., and all, everything went this way. And then one night, I had the TV on in the apartment that I used to live in, and I was in the other room, and I heard a voice, and I go, gosh, that voice sounds familiar. And I went in there, and I looked at the screen, and I saw this guy. I said, that's Donnie Wilson. That's what we called him when he was on the wrestling. A very nice guy, extremely good martial artist, not a fake. Just because he's an actor, that guy's the real deal, trust me, just like Bruce Lee was. But anyway, again, these are these things that, again, when I look back over my life, it's almost like it was stated. Now, wrestling is what led me into bodybuilding, and here's how it happened. I was working out in the college gym down there where I was on the wrestling team, and there were these three guys that were real heavily muscled that I got to know when I was in the weight room, and they said, oh, we're bodybuilders. Now, I kind of knew what a bodybuilder was, but I had never really seen one in person. I mean, I had never seen guys this built and everything else. Now, see how that sort of, how my zigzag path sort of went from baseball to wrestling to bodybuilding, and also I was into martial arts too. But it all seemed like I was heading in that direction. And actually, because of bodybuilding, I ended up having a pretty good life because outside of competition, which I hated, a lot of people thought I loved it. I did not. I didn't like getting ready for shows. It's a nightmare getting ready for one of those shows, and it's very expensive too. But I saw where I could promote the event. After I went to those shows, I started studying all the background and everything else, and ended up becoming a promoter and a judge and a chairman, and it just was a lot better once I got out. And then I got into the nightclub act, which was super fun. Not a plan in my life to ever become a Magic Mike, guys. It wasn't something I woke up one day and said, hey, I want to be one of those guys one day. That happened on a rare occasion, going to a nightclub, and a guy, and I don't go to nightclubs, some guys from the gym said, hey, you want to go out here? There's this club called the Spinnaker on the beach. Oh, okay, I'll go. And the guy stopped me at the front door and said, hey, aren't you the guy that just opened the gym in town? You got all the muscle guys. He didn't call them bodybuilders. I said, yeah. He said, hey, we have ladies night here, and we would need some guys like you. And that's how it all started. And I saw that I could turn it into something bigger.
Patrick, are you saying all these things in your life you didn't know, you never thought about, you didn't see that coming? You didn't, so are you saying that was laid out, or it wasn't predetermined? Or it was?
Well, what I'm saying is when I look back over it, it seemed like I was set on that path. But at the time it was occurring, I just looked at it as good fortune, as being in the right place at the right time. But now when I look back in retrospect, I see that it looked like it might have been mapped out. But anyway, so again, this is my experience. I don't want to sit here and tell everybody, hey, you gotta you need to look at life like I do. I'm just sharing this information to open minds to think, well, maybe there's something to this, and maybe that's why I haven't succeeded.
Maybe it'd be nice to try to make sense of all the threads of your life and have it like, oh, well, everything came together for a reason because of this, and this happened to me because if that hadn't happened to me, I wouldn't have gotten here. And if, I had lost this loved one, I would have never moved there. And then this happened. Because when I was growing up, there was nothing I have experienced in my adult life I would have ever thought happened. I was convinced for most of my life I'd never get married. I'd always be single, because who the heck would be interested in me? It just didn't make sense to me in my mind. Here I am, married, and, buried in this broadcast. I would have never predicted that because I'm a huge introvert doing an extroverted activity. So none of this I could have ever guessed was determined.
Before you reply, we're at the bottom of the hour, Patrick, so let's take the break. And you're listening to the SBU on the SBU Network. And I'm Spaceboy, she's Sherlana, and on the phone we have Patrick, the Precog. And don't go anywhere.
You are listening to Spaceboy Universe on the SBU network.
Explore the universe with Spaceboy and Sir Lana.
Hey, Solana!
What?
If Spaceboy Universe was cheese, would you eat it? Come on now, it's a simple question.
Maybe?
SpaceboyUniverse.com.
You are listening to Spaceboy Universe. Here are your hosts, Spaceboy and Sir Ron.
You know, it's a shame that we don't have a microphone behind the scenes, because this always happens when we have a great guest and a lively conversation behind the mic or behind the scenes. And Patrick is definitely one of those people that we love to talk to and listen to. Mostly listen, but talk to. And, you know, we're back with Patrick, the Precog. And I guess during the break, if you want to pick it up, Solana, you were chit-chatting with Patrick and...
just wherever you wanted to go, Patrick. I was just telling him about, I wanted to interject earlier, and I just told him what I said, but I thought, well, maybe we better save this for when we get back on the air.
Well, here we are.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
In talking about predeterminism, you know, I was brought up Southern Baptist, not just Baptist, but Southern Baptist. It's a whole different level of Baptist. It's a serious one. But, you know, and that was with the King James Bible. Of course, that, you know, New and Old Testament. So when I was brought up that way, if you're talking about predeterminism, it does have the illusion of, hey, everything you do is up to you. This is your choice. You have to actively work to be saved. And then you have to follow the principles, to be Christ-like, to follow the commandments. And it's up to you to keep it up. And everything you do, I mean, you can pray for support and help, and couldn't tell you if that works or not, but it's all up to you. So that would lead me to believe that some things aren't determined, because I don't think they would want us to think that, well, it's kind of predestined that you're going to hell, so why bother? So they wouldn't want that philosophy out there in that context, because you're supposed to work and try and keep this relationship close with the Creator and be Christ-like and, you know, do all the good things, try to be like He was. So, but if you learn it's all predetermined, is it all crap? But how would we know anyway? So well, how can one find out?
Yeah. Well, again, if you look at what I call, or what the media calls and what everybody calls freak accidents, for instance. Mm. Freak accidents happen to everybody, not just one religion, not just
good people,
bad atheists,
people.
You know, but, yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter. And they happen quite frequently. And when I see the things that happen to children, when I see the things that happen, the news report always starts out, if you ever watch the news at night when something crazy happens to somebody like a freak accident, the first two words were, she was, or he was. And then they follow up, she was a great person. Why did this happen to her? Why did the serial killer hunt her down and take my little girl's life? Or why was those kids shot at Parkland? You know, that's created so much controversy down in, you know, there's always those
putting
questions.
A spin on
that's
it.
Why these families... Mm-hmm. You said you were going to put a spin on it?
Well, they're putting a spin on it. They're trying to, I don't know if they're trying to get your empathy or persuade you or something. Or they're trying to make themselves look sensitive and caring when they say things like that.
Well, yeah, but I mean, there are cases where there are people that are good people.
Oh,
Look
sure.
At the, did you read about the fire, the 4 kids that were just killed in the fire there in Missouri?
Did you hear about that?
I haven't heard that yet.
Yeah, it's all over the news, and the mother couldn't save them, and the firemen wouldn't let her go in to try to save them, and other people tried to go in, but the fire was so intense they couldn't get into the house, and all 4 of her children died right before her eyes. Now, can you imagine? You can't even begin to imagine if you don't have children, but you can imagine if it was your loved one, what that must feel like. For the rest of your life, you'll remember that. That never goes away. And what I don't understand is why more people can't be empathic with instances like that, because I sit there and I think about it. Other people just slough it off. It's kind of like the immunity to what happens in movies and TV shows with guns. You know, I'm not anti-gun by no means, but I think that sometimes when you're picking on people who do want guns in the world versus Hollywood and TV who have made a fortune, a living, major movie stars have made killing look fun to a lot of people. And some people
Bunch of
can't
hypocrites.
distinguish. Right. And as Sir Lana brought out, some people can't distinguish between the reality and the fantasy of these things, and they actually go out and say, maybe everybody's not going to die. I'm just going to do this. I think some of these people have great regret after they do these things, and I think there's others that have no regret at all. They are sociopaths, they're psychopaths, and that's in their DNA. So, and I watch programs on serial killers that are behind bars, and there's actually a really good Netflix series that's on it's called Manhunter or Manhunt.
Yes. Waiting for season 2 on that one.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good show.
Yeah, that's all based on real stuff. And when you hear what those serial killers say, they have no remorse. They are born that way. It's in their blood. Now, the question you have to ask yourself is, why would God make people like that? Or why would God make pedophiles? Why would God allow evil rulers like Hitler and all these other things to exist, unless it was part of a greater dynamic, unless it was part of some scheme, a greater thing?
Unless
it's like
you believe in
Shalana
the
said earlier.
Force. Unless you believe in the Force, like there has to be balance. There must be good and evil. You can't have all one or the other. And I guess there's extremes out there, but again, I wouldn't know.
Well, this is how my concept of God is. It's much like the Force from Star Wars. It's much like I feel there is this force out there, but it's indiscriminate. Do you remember Interview with a Vampire?
Oh, yeah. Anne Rice's book, yes.
I didn't see
Did you guys see the movie?
I did.
He's looking at me like I'm crazy.
No, I'm looking at you because you said something like I missed
I didn't
something.
see it.
Oh, okay. Oh, I thought you were saying...
Well, anyway,
yeah.
There was... Tom Cruise played the vampire, was it Lestat?
Yes.
That he played?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, God kills indiscriminately, and so shall we. Do you remember that line in there?
Yes.
Yeah, and so you have to wonder, with that line, when somebody wrote that as a novelist, maybe that was being channeled indirectly to them. All of these, we've said often on your show that books, TV shows, movies, all seem to forecast the future indirectly.
Predictive
they seem
programming?
To be connected. The future. Well, maybe that, or maybe these people have been channeled information through their writing, through creation, right? And it's coming from somewhere, and it's kind of giving us a preview of what's coming, a future event of some nature. Because look at Jules Verne, look at H.G. Wells, look at a lot of the earlier sci-fi writers, and a lot of the stuff they wrote about is actually coming into some form of reality. Even stuff from Star Trek is now, some of these things are some of the gadgets and tech and everything they had there are now becoming a reality.
Mm-hmm.
So all of this stuff stands, it's all interesting. And again, it's just something I like to throw out there for people to think about. But going back to the lotto for a second, see, these numbers, and George and I have had this discussion before. I said, George, these numbers are fixed in the future, or I wouldn't be able to pick up on them. Now, it's the way that the information's coming to me that may seem a little wild, but there's been such a consistency, and when I discovered it, yes, I did very well financially with it, and I have the 1099s proof from the Florida Lotto.
Mm.
I'm not going to sit here and tell you that and make something up. Now, I don't play hardly any at all anymore, but the other night when that 112 was repeating, I took a card, I filled it out 5 times, and I thought, well, I think those numbers are going to come in, and I'm thinking I'm going to take a chance on it. But here's what happened. Now, was it fate? Did I make a poor choice? This is what I'm saying for you, Solano, for your benefit on that. I stayed up and binge-watched Homeland till 6 o'clock in the morning. And I knew it was a mistake to start watching it because I said, oh, if I start watching this, I won't go to sleep.
Yeah.
Because I want to see it. Now, so here I am. I doze off at 6. I wake up and record a couple of dreams. By the time I get up and by the time I post, I have no time to run out and play the midday game, and that's when those digits came in. And I filled the card out. So I had the right intention, but yet I didn't play. Now, was that a choice? Was that fate? You see, that's what I'm talking about. Regardless, the event, the 112, happened whether I played or not, whether I participated or not. those numbers still came in. Now, and Solaris brought this up on her show. So she was talking about, and I said, yeah, it's like we have an event, say like the hurricane in your area. Terrible event, right? And, you know, it left a lot of people. I mean, it was terrible. All those hurricanes that hit last year were terrible. So let's for a minute think that event was there, and you could have made a choice not to engage in that event by leaving or staying. A lot of people stayed. The hurricane hit. Regardless, nothing stopped the event. It was going to happen anyway. So did everybody that stayed, and everybody just like Katrina, did they stay because it was their time to die, for instance? Was it their time, or is all death random? See, when my father got sick, and I studied that event a lot, and I even had the premonition the day he died in my arms that afternoon. My girlfriend at that time, she's still alive, would verify it, because she was staying at my apartment, and when I woke up that morning, I was supposed to go out of town with my male dance group. We had a show in Alabama, so we were going to have to leave early, and I've never missed a show, never. I never missed a show. And I missed that show, and I told the guys to go without me, and I told my close friend, I said, here's what you get paid and all this, I'm going to stay here. And my girlfriend said, do you mind if I come over to your house with you? I said, no, you can come over. Sure, fine. And it was almost like it was set up for me to be there when my dad passed because of that impression. All right, so prior to that, when my dad got sick, which just surprised all of us because he took good care of him. So this is a great example of what I'm talking about. This is a person who didn't smoke, rarely drank, occasional beer, ate good, never ate junk, you know, always was in great health. He was a really great athlete when he was in high school and college, took care of himself, and yet he gets cancer. Now, the doctor said that he had the cancer for maybe 10 years, that it was slow growing in his body, but my dad didn't discover it until he broke a rib when he went out scalloping with his friend. He picked up a bucket and something cracked, and he went in and got an x-ray, and they found this stuff sitting in him. Excuse me?
Yeah, I was about to say there was an x-ray. It shows up there.
Yeah, right. So it was all over him, and you know, it was like we were in shock. And he never felt any pain prior. He never had any symptoms. Nothing indicated that he was sick whatsoever. In fact, I saw him at the happiest point in the life I had seen him in a long time. He was having fun, you know, and you know, he had been retired from the Air Force for a while, and he helped me out at the gym. He loved that, and he was a great friend. And for me to see him go to this now. My dad was Catholic. I mentioned that when we were off camera. And he took the rosary, and we had a hill in back of our home, or my parents' home, that led down to the water. And my dad would take the rosary and recite the rosary for a couple of hours and walk up and down that hill praying to save his life. It didn't work. It did not work. It didn't happen. And, you know, I could see the questioning in his mind while he was ill. I could see, you know, and he never complained, and he never felt sorry for himself, and he never said anything to the contrary or was mean-spirited or anything like that. And it was a very sad experience. And this is, again, I'm looking at these things in retrospect in my life and saying, you know, why do these kind of things happen to such good people? And, of course, somebody might say, well, your dad was in war and he flew a B-25 bomber and dropped bombs on people during World War II. But a lot of people did that. A lot of people have gone to war and come back and had good lives. So you can't really just pinpoint and say, well, you know, that person did this or this person did that, and that's why these things happen. Because I know some people that are alive today that have done drugs, been drunk out of their minds, have gone to rehab, and they are still alive and have outlived other people who have not done any of those things.
Well, now you're making it sound like it's more random to me.
Well, no, I'm not saying it's random. I'm saying when you look at it, when you start looking at it, it looks more like it is by selection. Like you have a life when you're born, you have a birthday, and then maybe embedded in your subconscious, you have a death day. And it's like I told somebody, I would never want to suffer what I've seen other people suffer through. If I was going to die, I hope I would die in my sleep and just disappear into a beautiful dream. But anyway, and I could talk about more experiences like that. But let's look at the Bible for a moment, and not to offend anybody. Oh, by the way, if anybody has HBO, there's a show on called Here and Now, and it just ended. They had the season finale, but I'm sure you can get it on. You can find it somewhere. And it's got a great cast, and it's all about the repetition phenomena that I experienced based on the 11/11, and it's leading up to this cataclysmic event. It's really well done. It's going to probably get a season 2, and that if anybody who has had 11/11 recur around them, they should take a look at that. I don't know if Ty is on chat or anything, but I know he had the 11/11 experience going on when I spoke to him a couple of years ago when he called in. So he would probably really enjoy that series. But and it's just so interesting to see all the interconnections to all the people. It's well written. It's by Alan Ball, who did 6 Feet Under and The True Blood. But back to what I was saying, we have a few minutes before we
Yes.
go off camera again. And I wanted to talk a little bit about, let's look at the story of Jesus and Moses. I select those two. And again, not to be blasphemous, but I want people to think about, let's think about the story of Jesus, for instance, as a thing about precognition. Jesus kind of knew he was going to die on the cross. Would you agree?
Yeah.
And he even said who would betray him, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So how could he know those things?
Well, he's the Son of God. He can know anything.
Well, yeah, but what I'm saying is Moses wasn't the Son of God, yet he knew all these things that were going to happen as well.
I think he was told too.
So let's forget about the Bible just for a brief moment. Let's look at these two characters as just human beings, people that have had extraordinary experiences. And let's say they were high-level intuitives. And let's say they knew things were going to happen, but it really, and they said the voice of God was nothing but like my subconscious mind talking to me or your subconscious mind talking to you. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so let's just say they are high-level intuitives, and that somebody that was writing this was looking at it and saying, oh, wow, that's a miracle. Oh, wow, that's this. But maybe these guys didn't look at it that way at all. Maybe they just said, well, this is just what I do. I'm picking up this information from the burning bush, etc., and I'm picking up on this is going to happen, and there's no way I'm going to prevent it. When you look at the story of Jesus, and again, not speaking in religious terms or trying to be a Bible thumper or anything like that, you have to look at his whole life apparently appeared to be mapped out, and as Moses and many other people in the Bible. Now, when you look at Moses, let's say he was picking up on these plagues, that he just had an impression and that he knew that. But somebody else looking at it might have wrote it and said, well, we're going to spin it this way. We're going to make this really interesting story, and we're going to say that Moses, was bestowed by God, et cetera, and and it's just like the parting of the Red Sea. Maybe he saw this environmental situation coming, and he intuitively said, well, I had a dream or I had an impression, and the Red Sea will allow us to cross at this very moment, and that's how I motivate everybody. Let's do this, da-da-da-da. And it was also prophesied that he was going to lead the people out of Egypt, correct? According to the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
So all this stuff is prophecy. So if you're a diehard Christian, if you're a Christian that says, well, you can't really say that these are the only people that are capable of this intuitive process in our day-to-day living, you can't just say that people said, well, it just belongs to Jesus, it just belongs to Moses. Now, the contradiction that I find with the teachings of Jesus in the New Testament says that, well, you have faith the size of a mustard seed and you can move mountains, but yet Jesus couldn't prevent his own crucifixion. It's kind of hypocritical, wouldn't you say?
I would say so. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, so this is what I'm saying. How can you tell people that if you have faith and you pray that these things are going to happen for you? Okay, here's a great example. I like sports, and I have friends that like sports. I don't know if you guys are sports enthusiasts or not, But have you ever watched a ball game and people are praying? You actually see they do shots of people praying for their team to win.
Mm-hmm.
So for a moment, you have to think, well, which side his prayer is going to be answered? And why did one side's team win that's praying and the other side didn't? See, you look at stuff like that. Let's look at when you watch television on a news report after a tornado or a hurricane or a fire or the mudslides. People that survived, what's the first thing they say? Oh, God spared me that day. God was looking down on me that day. But that statement in itself is a little bit arrogant. I don't think people mean it to be that way. But it's a little bit arrogant because of what about all the other people around you that were devastated by the tornado, the hurricane, the fire, the mudslides, and everything else? Does that mean that they're not special? See, these are the things that I look at all the time, and this is where I see the contradiction when somebody says, well, we'll pray on it and see what happens. I like to try to tell people that although I'll use terms like positive and negative when I'm mentoring people or talking to people or talking to athletes, I believe in what I call reality thinking, which means you have to take action or you may die, or you have to take action on the situation that comes to you in order to, to capitalize on that situation. In other words, I could have turned down all those opportunities that I talked about earlier. I could have said, no, I don't want to do that, I don't want to do that. But it was almost like something pushed me to do those things. Why? I don't know, over a period of time. But as I look back over my life in retrospect now, it just appears to me like it's mapped out. And then when I have these experiences with the dreams and the lotto number and all the other things that come about, it seems like these are fixed future events and there's no changing them. You may or may not have free will to choose. And then again, what is making the choice? Where does that thoughts come from?
It makes you wonder. We're at the top of the hour. Man, conversations go quick with you, Patrick. And so let's go ahead and take our break. Do you, if we open up the phone lines, would you like to take some calls?
Oh yeah, I'll chat with anybody as long as they're not going to make jokes or crack jokes or nothing like that. I'll be more than happy if they want to have a discussion.
The Space Cadets will not do that to you, sir, or they'll face the wrath of the commander. So let's take our break. When we come back, we'll open up the phone lines and we'll chat more with Patrick-Sporer, the Precog, as he calls himself, and don't go anywhere.
You are listening to Spaceboy Universe on the SBU network.
Explore the universe with Spaceboy and Sir Lotta.
Greetings, Space Cadets. Let's see what's in the sky tonight in the Spaceboy Universe. Tonight, in the eastern sky, we have Spaceboy Universe rising above the horizon in glorious splendor. And in the west, we can see Solanus Majoris, which is visible at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, just below the K28 belt. So keep your eyes on the sky and listen to Spaceboy Universe.
You are listening to Spaceboy Universe. Here are your hosts, Spaceboy and Sir Lana.
All right.
Well, I have.
Hold on. So, the cup overfilleth there for a second. And tonight we're talking with patrick-sporer. The Dream Cognition Experiment is the website that you should go and check out all of Patrick's predictions.
Bring that up right now.
Go ahead and put that in the chat room, Solana. And I just wanted to bring up, as we watch the chat room, make sure to keep it clean and nice, because although we have different people who have all sorts of different experiences, the chat room is meant to broaden our knowledge base and not to belittle other people because of their opinions. So, on that note, we bring Patrick back into the fold. Patrick, my friend, you're back on the air.
Fantastic. Solana and I were talking off camera there, and I wanted her. She was talking.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Solana, and talk.
Well, I was talking about there's different philosophies. It's not just predeterminism, but there's different flavors of it. But one of the things that I've seen that comes up now and again is like there's a difference between the concept of predeterminism and fatalism. Now, reading from this educational website I'm looking at, it says predeterminism, which I think is what you've been talking about, is the philosophical and theological view that combines God with determinism, which is like, okay, so this doctrine, events throughout eternity have been foreordained by some supernatural power in a causal sequence. So it doesn't have to be God as, from the Bible. It could just be whatever force or creation or creator or super power that has predetermined in a causal sequence. Now, fatalism is a philosophical and sometimes theological doctrine that specific events are fixed in advance, either by God or some unknown means, although there might be some free play in minor events. So fatalism is like, okay, there's some determinism that's fixed in advance, but there might be some leeway for free will, is how I'm interpreting that. So fatalism actually sounds like it's more fun than predeterminism. If I'm reading this correctly, what's your take on that?
Well, I kind of rolled it all into one bowl. I think that, if I call it precognition, people say, well, precognition, that's predicting the future. Well, how can you predict the future if the future doesn't exist? Predeterminism, pretty well, it's kind of the same thing, that it's a deity or something that has, created all this for us. Maybe a matrix, who knows? And that there's no escaping it. And then fatalism, it all sort of rolls into one thing with me. So I don't want to mislead anybody into thinking, no, I just think like this, because I don't. I always say I'm 99.9% sure that things are pretty well fixed in our future. Excuse me. But I always stay open to that other, as I'm studying this, because I don't want to, I've never been a person that says, well, I 100% guarantee you this is the way it is. Because there's always that little curveball every once in a while, and I'll say, well, wait a minute, let me look at this. Well, for instance, okay, I made a post on February 17th, and in that post, it was a neighbor that lives close to me that I don't really talk to that much, but he showed up in the dream, and he was asking me, he said, did you hear about the person drowning that was being baptized? And I went, So I made a post on there, and when I made the post, then this huge news story, I don't know if you guys saw it, but the pastor drowned a woman during a baptism. Now, what are the odds of that? That was 2 months after that post, after that dream. Yeah, but you don't hear about that very often. Have you ever heard of anybody drowning during a baptism?
Well, at least they got saved right then and there.
Yeah, but here's the reason, and this is how these interesting stories. He thought she was a vampire.
Oh,
in that moment he was baptizing her.
Oh, my goodness gracious.
Yeah. So he had a delusional experience, and she lost her life. Now, was that fate, or was that a random situation?
He was a random wingnut,
look at Well, and you look at the 2 police officers that were shot and killed in Trenton, Florida yesterday. You saw that story, right? And they were just there just getting something to eat, and the guy shot him and then killed himself. Where's the justice? There won't be any justice. You won't arrest anybody. It just happens, and these poor gentlemen were just executed, basically. But here's the thing. I always like to throw a challenge out to people. If you really think you can manifest whatever you want, and you really feel that prayer works, or what I call, thought, where you just have a focused thought, maybe not called prayer for people who are in
or meditation, where you're trying to change the vibrations for the better.
If you have this goal, I mean, think about people who have never achieved their goals. Think about people who are trying to find a woman to marry, and it never happens, or trying to find the job they always wanted, or something like that. How come so many people don't succeed versus those that do? And Solana, you brought up an interesting point. It's real easy when somebody's standing on Mount Everest after they climbed it to look down and say, "Hey, look, I did this. You can do it too." But they're speaking from. They're not talking about the struggle that initially got them up there, where they may have thought in their mind they were never going to make it. I'll guarantee you that everybody's had doubts at some point in their life about, well, is this as good as it's going to get for me? And even as many years that I shot screenplays in Los Angeles and New York and South Florida, and I just decided this isn't my destiny. As much as I wanted to do it, and I had some great experiences and interesting things that came from that, friendships that were made, and all the other synchronicities. Like I said, chasing that cosmic carrot that's out in front of you may be part of why you're going down this road, and you're having all these experiences, and it has nothing to do with your goal at all.
That's an awesome phrase, cosmic carrot. I'm gonna write that down.
Yeah.
Trademark.
Well, if you remember on the very first show, I told you I was starting a book, and the title of it was "The Cosmic Dangling Carrot." It's probably in your archives, but you can write it down. It's okay.
I'm gonna write it down.
There's no guarantee I'll do anything anyway.
Positive reinforcement for Solana.
Sure. Well, that's gonna be our band name. So.
Yeah. There you go. That is a good band name.
Or our pub name. Go ahead. Sorry.
You could call the lead singer Mercury Retrograde and the Cosmic Dangling Carrots.
Mercury Retrograde and the Cosmic Dangling Carrots next on stage.
Yeah, next on stage. That would, some of these bands have these wild names nowadays. But, again, from my point of view only, not trying to force anybody to believe the way I do, because God knows I'm not a celebrity. If I was a celebrity,
you look like one.
Guarantee you, this is how our society is. If I was a celebrity on your show, I was one of these UFO specialists or Bigfoot specialists or somebody that's been on the History Channel or one of these shows, people would pay much more attention to me. That's just the way people are.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately, you have a very open-minded group with your space cadets, and they're gracious enough to listen to what I'm talking about without me being a celebrity. But we're a celebrity worship society, so if something happened and I had that freak luck that I sometimes have in my life, and I ended up with a reality show or touring or something, you would see a lot more people, because this is what happens with these self-help gurus. This is what happens. You see this all the time. It's not that they're any better than us or have anything better to say. They obviously were destined for what they were going to do, or they may have been born into it. Nepotism is widespread in Hollywood, guys, and in the music industry. You're well aware of that, I know.
Yeah.
So, if you make the connections and meet the right people, which is what I sort of did in bodybuilding, and here's another interesting story to go with that. When I promoted shows for 35 years, and we've talked about that in our conversations, not on the show. But it wasn't always easy to fit it in my budget to have a bodybuilding star, because that's a popular thing. It's called a guest poser. That's what they called them at bodybuilding shows. And it wasn't always easy to acquire these top-level guys, which is what I wanted at my show. And I thought, I'm just not going to be able to get these guys. They're too expensive, such as Lou Ferrigno. Well, because I became a psychic reader, reading cards and traveling around the country, going to psychic fairs, and the word got around at these bodybuilding shows, because women love the psychic stuff. They love card reading, they love tarot cards, all that stuff. And I always could get all the different girls at these shows around me talking about this stuff everywhere I went. And one of the ladies said, well, I need a reading. Could you do that for me? I said, sure. She said, well, I just want you to know, you do this for me, I'll do you a favor. Turns out, guess what? She was in charge of all the talent, all the top bodybuilding stars. Guys, what are the odds? And from that point on, I got Lou Ferrigno. I got Ronnie Coleman, Mr. Olympia. I got so many top people that people were saying, I know you're paying a fortune for these people. I said, I never told them that I wasn't. I just wanted people to believe that. So through that, if I had never picked up card reading, I would have never had that favor come to me. If I had not been in bodybuilding, I would have never met that person. You see how interesting all that is?
Mm-hmm.
One thing leads to another, a domino effect, if you will.
I'm torn. I see how these threads link together. Like if this didn't happen, I probably wouldn't have gone here, and then I would have met that, or that I wouldn't have gotten this job. But on the other hand, I'm like, I don't like it. I don't like the idea that it's all laid out. You just got to make the right moves, and there you go. I'm not comfortable with that. I want to punch it in the face.
Well, but even if you say I'm not going to believe this, maybe that thing wants you to not believe that. Maybe that hidden factor, that hidden force,
playing mind games with me.
Determined your. Well, that might have determined. That's what I'm saying. Is it your choice? Is it your thoughts? Where do these come from? You know, do they really come from the brain within or not? You know, when you look at people who have risen to the top, you know, whether it's Einstein or whether it's Arnold Schwarzenegger, you know, when you look at Arnold Schwarzenegger's story, it's pretty fascinating. He was a foreigner, could hardly speak English, and look what he did. He became not only a top bodybuilder, he became a major movie star and the governor of California.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you know, think about what he accomplished. And the thing is, he said in his mind, he set out to do those things. He even got with Maria Shriver because he had interest in politics. Mm-hmm. Now, the truth is, did he do that by design, or did something? I mean, come on, guys. He can't run for president because he's not an American citizen.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he is, but he's not from. You know what I'm talking about.
He wasn't born here.
So you have to. You know, and how many people through their life growing up said, I want to be president of the United States one day, and it didn't happen for them. Mm-hmm. Or, like myself, I wanted to be a professional baseball player, and I was good, but obviously not good enough. And then when I started wrestling, I lost interest in baseball. I continued playing softball after that, had a lot of fun, but I just never went back to baseball. And it was a game I loved. I mean, I ate, lived, breathed baseball. I mean, but I'm a disciplinarian like that in everything that I've ever done.
Well,
Going into the United States Army.
Let me throw this at you for a second. You know, when I was a kid, there were three things I wanted to do as a kid. I wanted to be a ufologist, I wanted to be a train conductor, and I wanted to be an astronaut. Is this one of those situations that, sure, I wanted to be an astronaut, and in a way, I kind of did, in the sense that how Spaceboy is set up is basically...
Fake astronaut.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you putting fake in there. But isn't that a way where I kind of lived out a destiny in a sorts of way?
Well, that's very good, because the fact that you even said astronaut, and now you're indirectly doing that, might have been foreshadowing that you were going to do it in this way, but not become a real astronaut.
I had no ambition as a kid to be anything, and I still don't, and I'm not anything, so I guess it worked out.
Come on, Sir Lana. You know, you...
Well, you know, Sir Lana, there's nothing wrong with contentment. In fact, I envy people who can be, contented and do what you do.
I wouldn't say I'm content. It's just that I can't think of anything better to do. So it's more of like malaise.
Yeah. Well, I again, as you contemplate, when you have time to contemplate, when you get up by yourself or even reading a book, I guarantee you while you're reading that book, if you pay attention to your thoughts as you're reading that book, thoughts that have nothing to do with the book, and jot them down, I guarantee they're connected to future events. In other words, you've heard me say this many times. I am not the only person doing this. I never stand on a soapbox and say, hey, look at me, I'm the only guy who can do this. I have taken this course, or something's guided me here to study it a little heavier than other people maybe, but everybody is intuitive, and we're all linked in some strange way in these stories I've shared tonight. Okay, did I tell you how I got on the Tonight Show? Did I ever tell you that story?
I don't recall. Go ahead and tell it anyway.
Guys, do you remember? Okay, do we have time? Does anybody call in anything?
No,
we're all good. It's all you.
Okay, so here's what happened. For a number of years, I would visit a good friend of mine who I met because of bodybuilding and because of the male dancing, who found a postcard of me and decided he tracked me down. This is before the age of computers and everything else, and said, hey, I think you would make a great model for Playgirl magazine. I said, oh, okay, great, fine. Anyway, he ended up, through that friendship, he realized I was writing screenplays, and he was connected to producers in California. He lived right off of Sunset Boulevard. It was really nice, and I would go out there every year, and we would just go on movie marathons at the end of the year. I would always take, when it was slow at the gym, I would go out there for my vacation for 10 days to 2 weeks and just go to movies and movies and movies. And so one of these years, it was 1998, I told him, he said, what special do you want to do? I said, well, I want to get on the Tonight Show. I want to go to the New Year's Eve live, because they shoot that one live with Jay Leno.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, okay. Now, this is my friend. He's so funny. For some reason, people get this idea when they live in a big city and they're used to all these things, that people like you and I and everybody else get up at 10 o'clock in the morning and we don't really go to work. I don't know why they think these things. So he said, well, you got to be up real early. We got to be there at 5 o'clock in the morning to wait in line. And he's not kidding. And the morning that we went, it was December 31st. And it was don't let anybody tell you Southern California doesn't get cold, because it was cold that morning. Mm. But when we got there was such a line of people outside NBC studios. I mean, it was a huge line, and I thought, oh, God, we're probably not going to even get in. Well, just before we got to the desk, they cut off. They said, okay, that's it. You can get a standby pass in case somebody doesn't show up, but you got to come back and stand in line again in the afternoon. So my friend says, well, do you want to do that? I said, oh, what the hell? Let's go. Let's try it. So we went back that afternoon. We got to the front door, and they said, one of you can come in, the other one, which were full. So we didn't want to do that. So this lady that was behind us, she was happy. We said, you can take ours. So, okay, I didn't get in. He didn't get in. And here's what I told my friend. I said, well, I got 5 more days here. I said, if I'm supposed to get in to see this show, I will. I didn't say another word. Flash forward 5 days later, my last day in L.A., January 5th, 1999. My friend's computer goes down. He says, I won't be able to take you anywhere today. I've got work to do, and I've got to get this computer up. My friend's coming over. I said, no problem. I love to explore on my own. But I didn't have a car, and he didn't want to lend me his vehicle, which I understood because of insurance. It's crazy driving in L.A., trust me. But
we know.
I said, well, what am I going to do? So I said, I'll go rent a car for myself. So I walked out of this rental car place, which is not far from his condo, and I go in, and the guy says, we don't have any cars. He said, everybody's been in Vegas for New Year's, and he said, someone will be coming back today. I said, put my name on the waiting list. I said, I don't want a big car. I said, I just want a little cheap economy car just to jet around in. He goes, you're not going to get one of those. He told me straight to my face, you won't get one. He said, everybody's got it. So I go back to his condo, and I'm lying out on a recliner, just kind of taking a nap. And then a voice says, go get your car right now. I go and walk to the rental car place, and as soon as I walk in the door, the guy hangs up the phone, and he said, how'd you get here so quick? He goes, that little car, what you wanted, came in about 15 minutes after you walked out of here. He said, unbelievable. And I said, okay, I'll take it. Now, meanwhile, time has passed by a couple hours or whatever from the day. Mm-hmm. So I take off, and I'm driving around, and I stop at a place of a guy who owns a gym there. I corresponded with, who's good friends with the actor John Leguizamo. You guys know who he is?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Yes.
Okay. He trains John Leguizamo and some other stars, and I went in to see who he was training today, and he wasn't there. And a young lady said, well, he'll be back later, and he said, I'll tell him you came in. She knew who I was. So I said, well, what can I do? So I decided to go sightseeing a little bit, and then suddenly, in some strange way, I end up near the 101, and it looks very familiar, and I'm looking across the road, and I'm sitting there thinking, I said, well, wait a minute, this is where we were the other day. I said, NBC Studios is right over there. So I said, how am I going to get across? Because now where I'm at, this is the freeway, and there's like 6 and 8 lanes, and cars are flying by, and I think I got to get over to that ramp. So suddenly I put my head down, and I said, well, if this prayer stuff works, or all this manifestation stuff works, I said, I need a way to get across the street. About that time, and no kidding, there's an accident about 200 yards down from me, and all the traffic has to stop. I look up, and I said, there's no traffic, and I jut right over there and get on that ramp and go right up into Burbank. And I go right by the NBC studios, and I said, maybe I'll drive in there just to see if they have a pass. And then I go, nah, I don't really care if I get on the show or not. Now, suddenly, I'm driving around Burbank, California, and I'm lost. There's no GPS back then. I don't have a cell phone, nothing like that. I'm driving around, and I'm looking for this psychic called the Psychic Eye bookstore, because it said there was one over there. And I said, well, I want to find that bookstore because I want to go in and talk to, as part of my 90s odyssey of talking to psychics and readers of the dead and astrologers. I said, I want to go in there and talk to some of the psychics. So I can't find the store, and suddenly I end up on this road, and I just start looking at the day, and I go, God, it's such a gorgeous day. And then it's like something turns my head, and it's like, there's the bookstore right there to my right. And I go down a couple of parking spots. There's an open parking spot. I park, I get out, and I said, I'm going to go check this store out. So I'm in the store about 15 minutes, and all the psychics are busy, but there's a reason that happened. So suddenly, I'm looking at books, and the lady said, well, there'll be one available here in a minute if you want to talk to her and stuff. I said, yeah. I said, I wouldn't even mind getting a reading. I'm out here visiting from Florida, and I said, I like to meet different psychics and astrologers and things like that. So I go by, and I stand by the front door that's closed. I just stand there with my arms crossed, and then suddenly the door opens, and it's like, you know how bright light comes into a dark room?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And then there's this silhouette of a person. And then I'm standing off to the left of the door so the person can't see me when they walk in. And then suddenly, Kevin Eubanks, the band leader from Jay Leno, walks in, turns, and I said, hey, Kevin. And he looks at me and he goes, hey, man, how you been doing? I haven't seen you in a long time. Now, I've never met him in my life. Never met him in my life. And he suddenly, we start talking, and he goes, I haven't seen you at the gym. And I didn't say anything to him. I said, well, do you know so-and-so and so-and-so? He said, I know all those people. See, I knew all these people he knew through bodybuilding because he worked at one of the Gold's gyms there. So we're talking, and suddenly he goes, I need a new assistant. He said, how would you like to work for me? I said, Kevin, I'd love to, but I live in Florida now, and I own a gym out there. He goes, I'll tell you how much it is. He said, man, if you want it, if you can go back to Florida, he said, you're the perfect guy. He says, you'll meet all the power players in the industry. He said, I go to their parties all the time. He said, I couldn't even believe this. I'm sitting here going, he's offering me a job. And I said, well, I can't do that. He said, but I'd love to get on the show. He says, when do you want to get on it? I said, tonight. He says, I'll fix that up. I'll put you on the VIP list. He said, but don't say anything about the assistant job because the assistant I have, I'm firing. And he said, she's going to call you when I get back to work, and I'll put you on the VIP list, and if you have any friends, call them and let me know how many you need. Guys, it's like manna from heaven. This is a 100% true story.
Wow. Not
made up at all. 5 days after we tried to get in, and now here I am on the VIP list, sitting next to Jay Leno's wife, Mavis, with her family and friends at the Jay Leno show. And on that night, Newt Gingrich was on there, a British actress name, I think it's Emily Watson. She was promoting a movie called Angela Ashes, and the kid that did knock-knock jokes. And I got to see it all play out, how they do the pre-show. Jay came out and talked to everybody. It was just incredible, guys. I mean, to have that kind of thing happen. And I've had many of these stories. I thought about writing a book about all these stories, but The problem is when you don't have a lot of witnesses. Now, I had his personal phone number. He gave me his personal phone number, his business card, in case I decided I wanted to come back and take the job. And it was that. This again, was it fate? Did I manifest that? I mean, come on, guys! It was my last day there. I didn't care if I got on the show or not. We tried to forcibly get on the show, right? We went and waited in line twice and didn't get on the show. It was kind of like an omen. It wasn't going to happen. And then suddenly, this miracle, the having to get the rental car. My friend's computer goes down. Getting lost in Burbank for that 45 minutes. All that had to be timed out. And I asked Kevin, I said, Kevin, how often do you come in this bookstore? Because I needed to know that. He says, I've never been in here. First time, he said, I was driving by and decided I wanted to come in here because it's a book I want. It's a book by a numerologist friend of his that died, and it's called, Your Numbers Up or something like that. Your Numbers Are Up or something like that. And he said that he doesn't want anybody to know he does stuff like this or is interested in stuff like that. He says, so please don't talk about it. So I won't, no problem. He said, but call this number. He said, give me about 30 minutes to get back to the office. And he said, we'll fix you right up. And he said, if you have any friends, let me know so I can reserve those seats, because he said they fill up quick. So I got so excited, I did talk to the psychic fellows there, and then I found a payphone. I called my buddy, and he said, I can't talk to you right now. And he hangs up on me before I tell him I got tickets to go to the Tonight Show. So I went, and he said, you know, when I got back late, he said, we were worried about you. We thought you got abducted or something. I said, no, I was on the Tonight Show, the taping of the Tonight Show. He goes, you got to be kidding me. And he was telling his buddy, he said, this stuff happens to him every single time he's out here. He said, I'm trying to get him to move out here. He said, he would get into the movies. And again, that's one of numerous stories. And again, was that fate? Was that, these are these stories I have to draw on, Sir Lana. This is why when you have these experiences, these peak experiences, like I began at the beginning of the show, it's difficult sometimes for other people to have an understanding unless you're right there witnessing it or experiencing it yourself. Now, I know other people, probably your space cadets or anybody in the PA UK universe out there, has had these same experiences. And they probably get excited about telling people. A lot of times people roll their eyes and don't believe them. But that happened. And there's other stories that maybe, I can probably tell another one here in the last 30 minutes if nobody wants to call in, which is fine.
Well, every story with you is always interesting. One thing leads to another. But let's pick it up after our break. Our last break of the evening, if you'd like to call, the number is out there, 833-202-SBUN. That's 833-202-7286. And so here we go with a break, and we'll be right back.
You are listening to Spaceboy Universe on the SBU network.
Explore the universe with Spaceboy and Sir Lana.
Get your game on Spaceboy Universe. Level up with Spaceboy Universe. No quarters, no problems. Play it at Spaceboy Universe.
listening to Spaceboy Universe. Here are your hosts, Spaceboy and Sir Lana.
Hey Space Cadets, it's Spaceboy here, and I want to just take the opportunity before I forget that, before there was the universe, there was Spaceboy Music. And if you go to Spaceboy Music now, all the music there is free. And that's right, it's free. It's a unique idea, concept that I've come to the conclusion that the music should be shared to the masses. So what does that mean to you? You can download any music that's on Spaceboy Music for absolutely free for non-commercial use. So go there, get you some music, free to download, share with your friends. As long as you don't use it to make a profit off of it, it's all good. And if you want to make some Spaceboy Music commercialized, just contact me at contact@Spaceboy Music. Not music. We haven't used that email in a long time. contact@spaceboyuniverse.com. So once again, download it, share it, but most of all, play it loud at spaceboymusic.com. So our guest tonight, as we round out the last 30 minutes or so of the program, is Patrick-Sporer. So, Patrick, do you want to take it up there? You had so many different interesting things you were talking during the break, as we do so many times. Take it from there.
Well, first of all, I want to thank all your space cadets for hanging in there and listening to me. I hope they're enjoying the show between their chats there. I hope you guys are enjoying the conversation. I surely am. You guys are always great to talk with, and I know that I'm sure that my page views will go up within a couple of weeks again after your show. Yeah, at least that's the plan, right? Hopefully, and hopefully your space cadets will start visiting. But I use the term coincidence. I use it loosely, but there's an old saying: coincidence is a coward's rationale. And the thing is, if you don't see the beauty in your coincidence, if you don't try to see the beauty of, here, this is the time I left the house, but when I left the house, there was a animal in the road, and I had to hit the brakes, which slowed me down. And then suddenly I went a little further, and then a road sign was there, and I had to take a detour. And this detour led me to this. And the reason I'm telling you this story, because this exact thing, not quite to the T, happened to I think it was an 18-year-old girl in Georgia who ended up winning like $20 million. And she never played the lotto in her life. And it was a detour, and she went and found this little convenience store out in the middle of nowhere and pulled in there for directions. And the guy at the counter said, "Oh, you should play the lotto." And she goes, "Oh, I've never done that." She played $1, first time in her life, and won. Now, think of why did fate guide her there to that? All those different things. And there's lots more of those stories out there.
Well, I know I've personally been in situations where I've stood in a fork in the road and and I've always taken the right path. But at some point I said, today I'm going to take the left path. Sometimes that usually ends up good or bad. But the thing is that for no apparent reason, my fate calls me to take a different path altogether.
Well, while we were off camera, you were talking about not going against the flow.
Right.
In other words, not trying to swim upstream, that you have had more success similar to what I've experienced when you just sort of say, what the hell? There's no sense struggling. I could have said something else, but you just sort of let it go. You sort of just give up and say, it's just like, I don't write screenplays anymore, but I love movies and TV. I always will. I write story ideas down every single day. I get an idea. But whose idea is it? It was like when I was on, you remember Mark Schwartz, right? On his show?
Oh, yeah.
And I talked with Mark about this very same thing, because, he had interest in the movie industry or connections or something there. And I said, Mark, whose idea was it? I mean, I could say all day that it was my screenplay idea, and I'll tell you this story of what happened. My writing partner and I, it was in L.A., I think it was 1995. We used to go out there to these writing seminars and pitch seminars where you could actually talk to Hollywood agents and there's actually two stories that came out of this. When I went, one of the guest speakers was supposed to be somebody else, but about at that time, I was a big fan of the movie The Shawshank Redemption. You guys, are you familiar with that movie?
Yes, with Tim Robbins and Morgan Freeman.
Never seen it.
Hello,
Yeah.
I'm Morgan Freeman.
Stop that.
It's an incredible movie, and it was based on a short story by Stephen King. And I remember when I went to see it, the movie theater was basically empty. Nobody went to see it because they didn't understand the title. But then when it came out, when it was released on video, people went nuts about it, and it was nominated for Oscars, and Tim Robbins was nominated for Best Actor, and Morgan Freeman, I think, won the Oscar for that. I believe, I think he did. But anyway, what happened is I really wanted to, I said to myself, I'd really like to meet Frank Darabont, who was the director, and I think he wrote the screenplay, possibly, but I know he directed it.
Mm-hmm.
So here's what happens. We get to L.A., and they canceled, the guy that was supposed to speak canceled. Guess who filled in? Frank Darabont.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he brought The Shawshank Redemption to show to the seminar, the class. And then we got to see the movie, heard his experience with it, and talked to him. Now, he's one of the creators of The Walking Dead, and he's in a major lawsuit over it. I don't know if you're aware of that.
With monies and stuff, yeah.
Yeah. But it was, what are the odds, guys? I barely even mentioned it. It was so subtle that I said, yeah, I would really like to meet him, and, and here he fills in. He wasn't even listed on the flyer or in the program or anything. He said, yeah, I'll come on there, and I'll do that. Now, at the same time, we went to a pitch party at evening, and I met the writer of GoldenEye, who's from Florida. He died not long ago.
Mm-hmm.
And his producer friend, we set up a pitch meeting with him, and he's a producer. He was one of the producers on the movie 12 Monkeys with Bruce Willis. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah,
oh, yeah.
Did see that.
One of my favorite time travel movies.
Yeah, and the TV series on Sci-Fi is incredible. It's incredible. It's over now. But so he's a producer. He's a main player. He's a hustler. So he meets with us, and I pitch him my version of Air Force One. This is before Air Force One was even becoming a film. Now, that doesn't mean that there wasn't a script floating around. I'm in there pitching it. My buddy says, yeah, tell him that story. And he started laughing at us. He said, stop right there. He said, no one is going to make a film in Hollywood about Air Force One being hijacked. He said, first of all, it would never happen. 2 years later, Air Force One hits the big screen. It's the biggest movie of that year, starring Harrison Ford.
And Gary Oldman was in it.
You have to wonder if that guy, I don't think the guy stole the idea. I think it was already in the works.
Mm-hmm.
They just keep a lot of stuff really quiet and private out there. But I think that producer probably said, oh my gosh, he probably remembered me immediately after that day, after that meeting.
Right.
And, when you go into these pitch sessions with these producers, they got a library of screenplays, all over their walls, and you can see the names of them and everything else. And at that time, a lot of people were pitching Spider-Man, and Tom Cruise was attached, believe it or not, in the mid-'90s.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody said, oh, Tom Cruise is going to make that. He never did. So, and it's the same thing with people who are famous. There's a lot of famous people or celebrities, et cetera, that never got certain roles that they said they wanted so bad to do. So it's just incredible when you see that everything seems connected in some strange way. It's not just a movie plot or a TV show plot. It's really, this stuff is real. And if you think over your life, it doesn't have to be major things. You'll say, wow, it's just like when you're in your house and you've lost something or you misplaced it. And suddenly you look for it and you go over and you may even say, did you move my stuff? Did you do this? And then you give up on it, and then suddenly, through some series of synchronicity in your own home, you find them without any effort. You go, oh, there they are. That is the same way these other things work in life. I don't know what you do to put it in motion. I don't think there's, after that 10-year odyssey in the 90s of doing all that searching, I came back to square one, that everything I was doing before was working. It's just that there's the old saying, which we started at the beginning of this program, there's a time for every purpose under heaven, for lack of a better word. I had 15 years of climbing the ladder, success, and all kinds of things happening for me. And then suddenly, 1988 comes around, mid-1988. The girl I'm with, we split up. My dad gets diagnosed with illness, and all kinds of things just started going wrong. What did I do different? What did I not pray? Because that was at a time when I was involved in prayer and meditation. I was involved in a lot of different things, and everything just seemed from 1973 or through 1988, that's 15 years, right? It just seemed like everything was going fine, and then everything wasn't fine. What caused that?
Makes you wonder. I can understand from your point of view that you would want to feel like, okay, here I've been this righteous man, but why has God forsaken me? And that would make one, test their faith.
The story of Job.
Mm-hmm.
Again, not being religious, not trying to offend anybody out there with the Bible or anything. I'm just saying that when you look at some of these stories and you don't attach the religion to it, they're kind of like fables, like
parables.
Things. Yeah, parables, right? That you can look at and say, well, look what he went through, and he still held his faith and everything else. But I've known a lot of people that have met with tragedy. My sister's a breast cancer survivor. I mean, she's survived, well over almost 30 years. And that was before all the technology we have today and the better ways of doing things. So people do survive, but she survived, but my dad didn't. Both my parents suffered in their deaths. That's so sad to see for such good people. But I'm not the only one. I'm not crying the blues. I've seen this happen to a lot of people, and that's another question you have to ask. Why do good people suffer, and why do some bad people, like Charles Manson, even though he was in prison, look how old he was when he died, how long he lived after everything he put in motion.
Crazy.
Why would evil be allowed to live then? Between Hitler and Castro, I was reading a story that between the two of them, there was close to 1,000 assassination attempts on their lives. There's a good movie called Valkyrie, by the way, that's about one of those. And everything
with Tom Cruise, yes, it was a good movie.
Okay, but look at that's a true story.
It is a true story.
A lot of facts are true, and look how he escaped that. The question you have to ask: why did those guys get away with what they did for so long? And Castro especially, and he lived to a ripe old age, and then JFK gets assassinated. And there's an interesting story about that. But prior before that he him and Lincoln and JFK both appeared to predict their own assassinations through dreams or just joking around or saying things to one another. So everybody on this planet has these stories. And there's no, I hope I get to live long enough to continue to explore and share these things. I don't know if I'll ever become famous, and people will say, well, he's famous now, we can listen to him and believe him, because fame said so. But, and again, my blog is 100% free. Anybody can visit it anytime, and you can, maybe it'll help you, figure some things out about your dreams or just synchronicity in general. I don't think a lot of your space cadets need to be convinced of that. But I would have, yeah. Solana?
Yes. No.
She was just amused by your statement.
Oh. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think they tune in. Gene, he's channeling that that poetry from somewhere to do it that quick. Guy's fast. It's fascinating to watch.
It is.
Listen.
Makes me jealous too.
Yeah. Well, we be able to always extend credit to other people for their talents. A lot of people don't do that. A lot of people get jealous, and a lot of people say, "Well, I'll tell you, if you want to, there's a really good game show on that will help you refine your intuition, and that's Jeopardy. Because you have to answer quick in the form of a question. I watch it just about every day, and it really, I can sit there and sometimes through the day I'll jot things down that'll end up on Jeopardy that same day when I watch it, and I'll go, wow, I wrote that down this morning, and here it is, one of the Jeopardy answers your questions. And it will help. It will really help. You're welcome, Gene. It'll really help you with your intuitive skills, just for fun. If you make fun out of it, the games will do that on their own.
Mm-hmm.
Games will do that on their own. But I know we got about 9 minutes left, and guys, it was so much. It was thought-provoking and fun to engage with you guys.
But just to
like
sum
we were all
up,
very lucid tonight.
You think that your life has been a series of predetermined events? Yes or no?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, I like I said, I didn't always think that, but where I am at now, I feel that not just my life, I feel that a lot of people's lives are mapped out. And again,
that bothers me. I don't know why, but it just bothers me.
Well,
I guess it just doesn't have to bother me.
But it bothers me too. It scares me because when I pick up on when I have these dreams about people that I know that have passed away after I've had these dreams, and what I knew that my dad had been sick, but he wasn't projected to die that day. My mother died a week after I told my sisters, look, I'm getting an impression about Mom, and my mom wasn't sick at all. I said, you need to tell her what you need to tell her because I think something's going to happen to her. And a week later, I wrote, in fact, I was so convinced of it that I got a card and wrote this beautiful letter about what she did for me in life. And I remember when she read it, she said, well, thank you, but I never gave her an indication anything was wrong. Now, she knew she was the same way. She's the one that actually turned me on to astrology because when I was a kid, she used to buy those little Dell Astrological, that you saw when you checked out at the grocery store. You guys remember those?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Little booklets? And my mom was a Virgo, ruled by Mercury. That's how I got turned on to Mercury retrograde. You think that's an accident? And I actually picked one up one day, and I remember reading it, and I, like a little kid, I'm going, oh, Mercury retrograde, what is this? And she's the one that was responsible for that, although she never really went to an astrologer or anything. She liked reading those things all the time. I couldn't ask for two better parents in my life, but I can't say all my siblings had the same relationship.
Mm-hmm.
But I did with mine, and I'm very fortunate and blessed, but I am very brokenhearted that they died in suffering. And I don't like seeing people suffer. And I hate to see anything happen to children. When I see those stories in the news of what people, parents even do to their kids, starve them, kill them, beat them,
mm-hmm.
and I see what pedophiles do to children, it just breaks my heart. It's so sad. And I ask myself, God, why would you allow something like that? And then the only solace that I have is that maybe it was all part of a scheme. Maybe, I need to take a Zen approach. I talked to Solaris about this on our show a number of times, that I try to take a Zen approach to life because that may be the only way to deal with the insanity that's going on in the world. And there's a lot of it, all the time. And I'm sure there's some people that think I'm insane talking about the stuff I talk about.
All right, Patrick. Well, we're reaching the end here, and I wanted to give you an opportunity to plug your website. And so if you'd like to go ahead and do that, and go ahead at this point.
Okay. All right. It's called the Dream Cognition Experiment, and I post dreams on there and other things like repetition phenomena as an experiment to prove that precognition is real. And I've been doing that for close to 11 years now. I've had the blog, and I just invite people to, take a look at it, give it a couple of weeks, and if you don't believe precognition is real, I believe you will believe it's real after you start watching the dreams and the post, and especially the lotto stuff that comes out. I know people say, well, if the lotto numbers are going to come in, why don't you play them? Again, what I want to stress about that before we go off the air is that I have played. I did play, and I did quite well, but I'm not a gambler. I'm not a gambling addict. I don't have an addictive personality, never have. I can stop stuff and start it, whatever. But you have to look at those fixed numbers and forget that it's about the lotto and think of it as a future event. Keep that in mind.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like the dream I had about Anne Margaret yesterday. I posted it yesterday, and then the result came in today. That fast. Anne Margaret. Somebody, and in the dream, she looked younger, and I was with my dad, and he was younger, and we weren't really father and son in the dream. We were like friends, and we were standing there, felt like we were in Los Angeles, and we were sitting there looking, and then Anne Margaret walks out, and everybody goes crazy, and they're taking pictures with old school cameras. That got my attention on Anne Margaret, and then then somebody said, well, that's Roger Smith's wife. He was her husband that died, and I had the dream about him 3 months before he passed away. He was on 77 Sunset Strip, the TV series. So, and those numbers came in tonight, that quick, 1 day later. And some of these things hit within hours. So, but anyway, guys, I want to thank you so much. It was really a great show. I felt very lucid, very fluid, and I want to thank all of your space cadets for hanging in there with me and listening to my psycho dribble here. And all the PA UK listeners out there, please visit my site at patrick-scott.blogspot.com, or you can put in the Dream Cognition Experiment. You can just Google that, and it should take you to the site. And please, next time before I come on the show, visit it so we have some more things to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Most definitely. Patrick, stay right there as we wrap up a little bit, and we'll say our final goodbyes on the flip side of this, so don't touch that dial, okay? All right, so there you go, Patrick-Sporer, the Precog, and what a wonderful night it's been. As I wrap up this program with Sir Lana, I just want to once again remind those to reach out to our good friend of the show, Heather Wade. Let her know that things are going to be okay, and that she is loved, and she's an excellent broadcaster, and we wish her a speedy comeback to the mic. At this point, we don't really have anything on the table for next week to broadcast, but I guess you'll just have to wait.
I'll get something together.
Yeah, so
I'll let you know.
But other than that,
Get
I
an
guess
idea.
we'll join you next time here at Spaceboy Universe, Saturday nights, 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. So tune in there, Space Cadets.
Spaceboy Universe is hosted by Spaceboy and Sir Lana. Executive producer is Sir Lana. Social media producer is Dennis Koch. Associate producer is Lee Ann Cordes. Music production is Spaceboy of SpaceboyMusic.com. Special thanks goes out to Lee Ann K28, Solars Blue Raven, Patrick-Sporer, Dino, Bob and Beverly M. This has been a Spaceboy Universe production. Support the universe by exploring Spaceboy Universe with Spaceboy and Sir Lana. Sweet dreams, Space Cadets.